Hello all. Hope you're doing well. Um, Happy New Year. Uh, Going to talk with our friend Bam, and it'll be fun. It'll be a fun conversation. Um, and about initially about the things that are gonna happen ahead in 2025. But we'll figure it out from there. Hey Bam.
Hey, how's it going?
Fine. Let's use the StreamYard link.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no worries.
Gotcha. Give me just a second.
Mm, Second, everyone, that I'm on the screen.
Anyways, how was your New Year?
Uh, how was my New Year? Uneventful,
Okay.
which is depressing for me. Um, for a few reasons. It's quite depressing for me. There we go. Right. Yeah. I want to get back to traveling one day, but I need cash to do that, and I have none. Um, I used to travel every New Year's in a different country, and it was a lot of fun. I would still now be in a different country, so like I would I leave soon after Christmas and then come back, on the third or fourth or something like that. Um, and those were really great. It was really great. I haven't been able to do it in quite a long time. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So like, it's actually quite depressing every New Year's, because I just haven't been able to do that.
Yeah. I, like my life is like, I guess the exact opposite.
Okay.
Is yours right now? Like I have, I guess, thanks to our current relationship, started traveling, and I kind of wish prefer I wasn't.
Yeah, I was like, I remember we had a conversation about that. I believe we did, right? That like you didn't like traveling.
Yeah, no. And but it's become like a part, I guess, a new aspect of life. Like, oh, you know, go places, see things. I'm like, guess, but I could be home in my space, saving money. But
Okay. Okay, so you feel like it's a waste of time. Where are you guys going?
um, well, now it's changed. The next trip I think is going to be Costa Rica. We're
Okay.
going to Curacao. I don't know. It's one of the ABC islands in South America.
Okay.
But one of our friends is having twins, and she feels like being, I guess, quote unquote, closer. So now change to Costa Rica. I
Is
don't
he
know.
going for like a scheduled birth? Or is she just
No, just
okay?
it's just our birthday.
Okay. I was
Like
going
they both
for
have like similar birthdays, so they're like, "Oh,
okay.
let's do a trip together." It's
Okay.
like,
All right. Well, then she can do a trip, right? She can
yeah,
do a trip.
yeah,
What's that
but
got to do with you?
normal people and like with like healthy friendships, relationships, and things like that, they make accommodations and considerations.
But it seems like you already have. Like, where did you go already?
We went to crap. I didn't Puerto Rico because I didn't have my passport. I technically still don't. I've ordered it, hasn't came in yet. Um,
Ah,
but
scrub. All right.
yeah, it's a horrible thing. And I just spent like thing there $200 for a little book that
Yeah.
says I can go and come back to America.
Uh, I think I have to renew my passport pretty soon actually. Um, uh but yeah, it's definitely worth it to always have a passport. And it's actually quite useful when you get one. It'll be really useful because anytime you have to interact with the government, or they're going to ask for identification, you can almost always just use your passport. Um, it's like really nice to have that as an identity document, but like it's a pain in the ass to get it. But once you get it, it's usually good. However, that whole Real ID thing, have you
Hmm.
gotten that? The your Georgia Real ID? Yeah, I. It's like I think by next year or something, we gotta get our hands on that. I need to do that, but like for some things, like you'll need a real ID, not even a passport. So like, um, in case you guys don't know what I'm talking about, like you should. I hope you do actually. Is that Real ID? REAL, like Real ID? That's like what the name of it, which is kind of confusing. Is like enhanced identification. Basically, it's a way to, I think it's a way to screw over undocumented immigrants, but like you have to like go through like the DMV and um give them like more documents, even if you have a driver's license, right? Like I just renewed my driver's license actually like a month ago. Um and but that I still needed to do more to get like a real ID and more things. I didn't have the documents they needed. I couldn't just use my passport, like, hey, I got this, and it's not working. Um, and so like this, there we were the whole nation was supposed to switch over to real ID, like in it's like
Oh
in
wait, it says like
2020.
I'm looks like I'm required to have it by May.
Yeah, there you go. Like I said, yeah, by this year.
Oh,
Oh, sorry,
why haven't I heard about it?
I said
This is
next
the
year,
thing
but
I'm supposedly required to have.
yeah, I said next year. I meant this year. Happy New Year's on that note. But like, yeah, this year. This year is when you're required. And I think May. I think this is for different states. It might the deadline might be slightly different for different states. I'm not sure about that. But I'm pretty sure the most of the country is supposed to be switched over to this by 2025. Um, and yeah, like it's like it was a big legislation. So like, what I was trying to say is that this was um like required to do we were supposed to do this switch in like 2020 or 2021, but the pandemic hit,
Hmm.
and so they pushed back the uh due date, the start date of this thing. I remember back then, this is years ago, that there was a big media push say, hey, you got to get your real ID, do the real ID thing. And it's still, the message hasn't gotten to lots of people. To enter into certain government buildings, you'll have to have a real ID. To like do certain, tasks, you'll have to have a real ID. This makes it just harder for like, undocumented immigrants, honestly. Like it's really that's really what it is. To do anything. Because they won't be able to get a real ID. So
Oh, it says the only maybe I already have one. It says the only visible difference between your current license and real ID is a gold or black star icon in the top right corner. I haven't looked at my license in a while,
you
but I'm
don't
like
I
maybe I
you
have that.
almost certainly don't have a real ID if you haven't like gone through like this extra documentation process. But take a look at your your driver's license.
Yeah. Hold on a second.
Yeah. Um yeah, so out there, audience members, if you haven't done this, if you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, well, that's okay. Lots of people don't. Lots of people don't. Honestly just had to be like pay attention to the news. Like this is not a thing that lots of people were talking about, but like I mean, I guess there were commercials. Like back then, I don't know. I don't see commercials myself. Like I've long ago, like stopped seeing commercials. Like very like consciously cut them out. And I even have YouTube Premium, so I don't have to see fucking YouTube ads. Even though I watch YouTube all day, I don't see YouTube ads. So I don't know, like if ads are back. Let me know in your area. Actually, put it in the chat. If you're seeing these ads, because the deadline is coming for this thing, and it's like quite important. So yeah, I don't have it myself. I don't have it myself. I forget. I was looking online for my the local DMV, state DMV, and it, I forget what it said. I needed like I think proof of my, yeah, that's what I need. I need like proof of. Oh, you got the star?
Yeah.
You sure that's it?
This is the black star.
Okay, I thought it wasn't. Well, maybe Georgia's doing it differently. Um, I think for other states, like it looks differently. I haven't heard of like needing a star at all, actually. Um, it looks a lot different, and so I don't know. I don't know. I'll just leave it alone. If it says you're good, then that's fine. But that doesn't look like the real IDs I've seen from other states. So,
Mm.
yeah, like it says like real ID on it or something like that. I don't know. But
Are you organ donor?
I am actually. I did I was originally, I believe I was originally. I first got my license. But when I went to renew, I realized I wasn't an organ donor anymore. But I don't know, maybe I didn't in between when I had it renewed. And maybe I didn't actively click the link or whatever, but I am now again, so my organs are trash. So like it actually probably wouldn't be useful. Um, I had a conversation with but I actually had a conversation with a person involved in the organ donation like process, right? Like a person like for a major hospital who like coordinated organ donations. Um,
Mm.
my organs are probably trash. It's okay. Probably actually wouldn't use it.
I
Um,
heard that families, like even if you have it on your ID, if you're like identified,
hmm.
then your family could still just say no.
I mean, it probably depends on the circumstances. Like, when do they find out you're dead, right? Like, first of all, right? Like, they got to get them fresh, right? Fresh from the farm. So there's that. But yeah, they might be able to interfere as well. I don't think they push too hard on these things. It's like a PR nightmare if you're like fighting them on it. So they
Mhm.
probably actually just won't. Um, uh, and that's why you need like a living, not a living will, a living will. Like a medical directive is what you need,
Mhm.
right? Like, and let people know exactly what you want done. Um, yeah, I should do that. I mean, when I have cash, I'm not needing money. I don't know. Whatever. If I just die now, that's fine. But uh, like, and this is actually that's another thing. Like, you should let people know and put it within a contract. What do you want done when, like, if you go into a coma, right? Something awful happens to you. You're in a coma. Do you want to like fight and like, hey, keep me alive for as long as
Yeah.
like physically and financially possible,
Mhm.
or do you like, hey, like do your best, but if like in a month can't be done, then pull the plug, like that's a
Yeah,
deeply personal
I've
thing.
always most people say like, "Oh God, if that happens, just pull the plug on me." Blah blah blah.
Mm,
I've been like, I don't want like my loved one to go bankrupt over it. But if like my insurance will cover it, or if like my like
mm.
I'm chilling. It's like, but you're a vegetable. I'm like, you know what? There's probably worse things to be.
If you're yeah, and if you're a vegetable, I mean, I think it's probably all kinds of like in between vegetable and like unconscious. There's
Mhm.
probably quite a distance there, and like, what do you really want to happen? And uh, God, hopefully you're not conscious, but if you are conscious,
What is it, that trapped in syndrome or trapped in disease or something?
oh God,
Yeah.
oh God, like nightmare fuel right there, nightmare fuel,
Mhm.
where you basically can't like do
You can't
almost anything.
respond, but you can feel and see, but you
Yeah.
can't respond. You just
Oh my God, that.
it's basically a sunken place. Like it's this Jordan Peele movie.
Yeah, like I need to, and this is why I need a like a medical directive type document. If that happens to me, kill me. No, seriously, done. We're done. We're cutting it off. Nightmare fuel. Fuck that. It's like literally like I've like lost sleep over like that thought. Something like that could happen to me. Like the worst things that I can, one of the worst things I can imagine for myself. Don't, bam, like I got a mission
Yeah,
for you.
you got you. You're putting it out here in the world. There's literally video evidence of you saying it. But to me, I feel like like it would suck, but it's like kill me. I'm like, huh, I'll be fine.
You would you? Would you
Yeah,
be
I'll be
fine?
fine.
And you can't, and like, but here's the thing: if you changed your mind, how will you know? Like if it happened and you realize, oh my god, this is actually the worst thing ever. Like,
but you've never died before either.
what do you mean by I never died before? But like,
You know, yeah, it's like, oh, just kill me, it'll be better. And like,
oh, I see what you're saying. But I've never. I the idea of I remember talking to my mom not about this, but like the idea of just being unable to communicate, right? Like medically, and just how terrible that be. Like at the very least, oh God, if I'm blind or if I'm deaf or whatever, right? Like please let me be able to communicate with the outside world to let them know, if people understand like how I'm feeling, what my needs are. I can't even do that. I can't like wiggle my fucking eyes. All right, like I can't do anything. Holy shit. Like that's so terrifying. Like what am I like what am I doing at that point? What can I enjoy in the world if I can't even ask people to help me? Like, hey, like put One Piece in front of me.
I was about
Right?
to say, we could put, what if you just put in there like put like the One Piece anime on in front of me until it ends. At least
Oh, and by the time it ends, if I still can't get out, then maybe kill me, or like,
yeah. Like what if you're like going in, you're like getting locked in, but you feel like there's like 5 chapters left.
oh, I would actually. But no, honestly, and this is the thing. Like even as we were having this conversation, this is the thing that I have, and this is serious. So this is a real thing about me and my wants and desires, right? It hasn't always been One Piece, but it's been other things in the past before I like knew One Piece. But like as of now, right? Like my, I want to live for the long natural life, right? That's my goal. But at the very least, it has to be into the end of the manga One Piece. Like I need to know what happens. I need to know what the One Piece is. In case you guys don't know, it's a mystery treasure in the manga, right? It's a mystery treasure there. I need to know what that is. And for, like, it's been like the mystery has been going on for nearly 30 years. It'll be past 30 years by the time we find out. I need to find out. I need to see the main character achieve his goal, become the Pirate King. And so, like after that, all right, everything else is like bonus to me. But I need to like,
and I also need to see it like. I think like I need to see it exactly. I need Oda to write it. Like you know how like I couldn't. I'm not a crazy Berserk fan, but like I know Berserk fans have to feel like they like lost something.
Yeah, that we did. I'm a Berserk fan. And we did the author of Berserk is another Japanese manga to the audience, and the author died like 2 years ago or so. And he apparently did talk to other people about like what he wanted to do. It's like because the Berserk had been on hiatus for like fucking forever. For various like publishing reasons is what my understanding is, but I could be wrong. Oftentimes when that happens, it's like health reasons, like for Hunter x Hunter, which is another Japanese manga. But in any case, but he at least seemed to communicate with like his like good friends and his staff, right? Because authors of Japanese manga have a lot of staff around them. And he had left notes, and so like it's right now they're in the process of trying to finish his work. And we'll see what that is. But like,
you know they're gonna fill in pieces. You know, like you know you're not getting what was originally intended.
Yeah,
no matter what it is. Like even if it's good.
And so, like for One Piece, it would be devastating for the fans. We've been following this, especially. I mean, the old heads have been following this for like straight up 3 decades from the beginning. That if Oda can't complete his vision, Oda Sensei is the name of the author. But if he can't complete his vision, it would be fucking devastating. So let's hope. We're not quite in a George R.R. Martin situation here. He's not like he's like below 60. He's like or maybe he just turned 60. I forget, but he's like around there. But so he's not reasonable. He's not quite healthy. He actually has his health problems as well. But still, he's not dying. As far as we know, he's not dying or anything. But it's you never know. And on that note,
turned 50.
Oh, turn 50?
Actually,
okay.
Yesterday.
Oh, Happy birthday.
January
That's
1st.
right.
Yeah.
He shares his birthday with Ace. He made Ace on his birthday. I guess one of his favorite characters. Same day. So yeah, January 1st. I thought it was 50 because he wanted to like he was talking about like completing the manga around the age 50. I thought it was 60. But it's apparently it's 50. He wanted to complete the manga around this time. But as always, this man does not know how to do math. And so he didn't. He has no idea how long the thing is gonna take to wrap up. And so he's completely blown past it. It's gonna probably take another like 6 or 7 years, honestly. But it's okay. Because again, he's 50. He's got a 10 extra years on him.
I was about to say he must have gone to like, I guess he's gotten like dental work done. He honestly looks great. He looks the best he's ever looked. I just
I mean,
seen
hold
this
on.
like picture
Was
of
there
him.
a picture of him? He usually doesn't have any pictures of him.
Yeah,
This
this
is
is
a new picture. Audience members, in case you don't know, and sorry, we won't be spending a lot of time on this.
yeah, no, this isn't
But
a cool thing.
this author almost always hides his face. He doesn't show his face. Usually when like there's sometimes some videos of him, right? And he'll like demand that the videos be are you sure this is Oda? I don't think this is Oda.
If it is, he looks fantastic.
That's Yeah, he does, and he looks completely fucking different. I'm sorry, he sent me a DM of I'm almost certain a completely different Japanese man. This is super racist. Bam. This is not Oda.
This is what comes up when they're older. It's like 17 pictures of this picture under his name.
It's not
You sure
Oda.
that's not him?
I'm almost certain that's not Oda. Have you
The
seen him
fact that you're not
before?
positive.
Have
Yes,
you seen
I
the
know.
man
That's
before?
why I have. That's why I was like, wow, Oda's like killing
This
it.
is
at 50.
not Oda. Sorry, whatever. This picture. I'm not even gonna show the audience this picture. It's like worthless because this is not him. It's
Okay,
not.
well, there's like 17 like different links of
Yeah, yeah.
him.
Because I would imagine he's SEO poison, right? Like Google search poison because he doesn't show his face, and people are still
Well,
going to
there's
look for
younger
his
pictures
face.
of him.
Yeah, and they look completely fucking differently. Like he's not. That's not his face shape. He has a completely rounder face shape. This guy is like a fucking model. Oda is not like. He's not. His looks isn't why he's like a celebrated author. Let me just put that out there. not his skill. He doesn't make money off his looks. But he's an incredible individual. And what he sent me was not fucking Chiro Oda. What the fuck? Or whatever. Anyways, so last thing I want to say, and we can move on with this. George R. Martin will apparently for the first time,
Oh wow, this is funny. I'm
What?
sorry. It's a different picture of like that same person, but it's on Reddit and someone says everyone upvote this picture. This way it will show up at the top. People type in Ishiro Oda.
Yeah.
And then someone said, "Who is this?" It says, "That's Ishiro Oda, you silly fool." It's obvious when you type it in Google Images, you'll find him. Like it's the same person, but I guess it's not. But like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different picture, but of that whoever that person is. But that person's picture is directly associated with everything Ichiro Oda. Maybe his name's also Ichiro Oda. Maybe he's a different one.
I don't know. But as a true One Piece fan, I would have never fallen for that. Like, what the fuck?
It's on his wiki. It's on his wiki.
You and I, yeah. Oh, okay, sure, whatever. You and I are built differently, okay, as One Piece fans. I would never fall for something like that.
You're not even. You're still not even sure it's not him.
I'm positive. I was positive. I'm absolutely 100% positive it's not him. I said that from the very start. It's not him. I reacted immediately. Rewind the VOD. I know that's not him. What are you talking about? Of course, it's not him.
You're not.
I am. To my, I've seen this man. I've seen him in multiple pictures. I've seen him, there's and by that there's less than 5 of them out there, right? There might be 4, honestly, right? Of verified pictures of this man, and I know what his face looks like. I've seen him many times in front of me, and I know that this guy who's like a fucking model he sent me, right? Like an older model. That is obviously not him. But I'm a real fucking fan, okay? And so you ain't on my level. As I keep trying to tell you, Bam. But we can move on for once. Anyway, George R. R. Martin is actually he had this put out some sort of interview or something that kind of implied that he might not make it. Like for like he's like losing confidence that he'll finish the uh, uh the Ice and Fire, the Song of Ice and Fire series. There's two more books in case you don't know, right? In case you were just like a fan of the TV show. Like they stopped adapting the books because there was no more books to adapt, right? After the fifth one or the sixth one? Okay, which one? But and which came out soon after the first season aired, right? Um, and there are two more books: A Winds of Winter and A Tale of Spring. And sorry, Dream of Spring, and he's still been working on them for like 13 years. And yeah, he's not sure. He's like super old now, and he's not sure it's
Well,
gonna make it.
I think the show broke him. Like I think that Game of Thrones came out and it gained like a new fandom and popularity that like terrified him from ever being able to like live up to anyone's expectations. So in response, he got like the ultimate like writer's block and he'd rather just die.
Um, uh, Taz, Taz Kid Noah. Hey, Taz Kid, I haven't seen you in a long time. I hope you're doing well. Um,
I hope you're
he
not.
said January. Could you Journey of the West? Oh, you mean I see what you're saying. You think Journey of the West will give a a some sort of hint as to what the ending of the no. I think it's gonna be very different. I think it's gonna be extremely different from Journey. I think all authors, especially Eastern authors, take some level of inspiration from Journey to the West. But no, I don't think it's gonna be whatever that ending was. I think it's gonna be very different. Because it's a very different story. But yeah. So what I wanted to start talking about are, and we can switch from there into something else, right?
Okay. Because I have something too.
Oh sure. 2025 like predictions. Like what do you think is gonna happen? I mean, we're gonna have a lightly used administration, new administration come through, right? Like not quite new, but just lightly used. That'll be showing up. Um, and people are scared. People are really scared. If you aren't on the MAGA train, a lot of people are scared. I have immigrants, like undocumented immigrant people in my life, who are terrified. Uh, like the common frame, right? Like thing they've been absolutely clear on is that they are going to start deportations day one, right? And by day one, I don't think actual day one. I don't think they can like, but they'll be like reforming the immigration system, and it's something that's probably quite a bit more racist, right? Than it already is. It's already pretty fucking racist. And a lot of people are going to suffer. They are going. That Texas is donating land. Texas donating land to the federal government along the border to set up camps to house a great influx of undocumented individuals, right? And so they're assuming these ones are Latin American individuals, and those are the type of ones they want gone, right? The brown ones, they want them gone. And like it's gonna take a while to, even if they're gathering individuals, right? It'll take a while to eject them because they have to go through some level of legal process. They won't be able to dismantle the entire process to just like toss people out immediately. Like, oh, you don't have your papers, and so you're ejected from the country, right? Like you still have to go through a process, but it's a long process, and so they want to house these people in like pretty much concentration camps. Like it's like no joke. It was really bad before, if you remember that time period. I think it's gonna be worse now. I think the director, the guy who's gonna be the border czar, is coming in. He's like extremely fucking racist. This dude is like Like
I think
openly fucking racist. Go ahead.
yeah, I seen like even today, like whenever like a lot I was Fox News was playing at my job and they were discussing the tragedy that happened in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
Um and instead of dealing with the fact of like, oh wow, this is, like like dealing with the fact of like, oh, this guy was a veteran. Maybe he was suffering from crazy mental health issues. Maybe we should actually look into the background of him. But like this guy's an American citizen with parents who are also American citizens, and because he's brown, like we somehow made this a conversation about immigration. You know how racist that is? Like it's insanely racist to be openly like, see, this is why like these people don't need to be here. It's like the only reason, like there's no sugarcoating it. There's the only reason we're having this conversation about immigration related to this person is because he's a brown guy. Like no one would, if there was a white guy whose grandparents were French. Like no one's bringing like, and he does something. No one's talking about like, wow, think about what about his grandparents' immigration status? Like maybe we should never let them get here. But because his
Um,
name goes like Alakar Shah, whatever.
Holocaust. Just like said a bunch of Muslim sounding syllables.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Then like, hey, like, what's the issue with this tragedy? Immigration. It's these
mm,
mother effers being here, and like that's exactly what the conversation went to. And because I live in the deep south, I get to watch in real time white people like respond to the like messaging that Fox News gives, and that's like immediately went to this like, yeah, God, I just hate that. I don't feel safe. We can't let these people live around us. Blah blah blah. And I'm like, that I don't know. It just feels insane that this is the world we live in.
um, w-
I also
I
have a couple predictions, but that was just the first thing that came to my mind.
sure,
Um,
fair. Well, like, but on that note, and I haven't seen it. Tesla driver. All right, so, a there was an explosion, near a Trump property in, I believe, Las Vegas. Um, and we don't know who was the driver. I've heard
there was a
it was,
military ID inside.
yeah, yeah.
Also being American.
I don't I've someone said that he was white. I haven't like um said on yeah, I'm not sure if we've actually seen a picture of him yet. But like that, like let's pretend that he was white, okay? For the purposes of the conversation, if he was white, I don't think Fox News is going to be plastering his face all over their headlines. I don't think they're going to be playing the explosion of the Tesla Cybertruck, right? Because this person loaded it with explosive. It seems like it was intentional. And they
Mm.
blew it up outside like this hotel type place, and maybe with them inside, possibly. Who knows, right? Like we're
Yeah, it
still
looks like he shot himself in the head before.
okay. Yeah, and luckily no one was. I think some people might have been injured, but no one died. No one else died.
Hmm.
And but we don't know who this person is. But if they turn out to be white, uh like I think like we'll have an interesting response because both of these incidents happened on the same day, right? Like the Tesla
Hmm.
explosion, and then the uh mass vehicular homicide in New Orleans. I think we'll have a very different response if they are really white.
Hmm. Well, to be fair, there's going to be a different response because of the death count. But I will say there will be they're not going to be weighed equally. But if both of them turn out to be some brand of brown, then like it's going to be a magnification. Like, oh, we got to just get rid of all of them.
Um,
It's a conspiracy.
so I'm seeing an article from WRAL News, and so it seems like some sort of local news outfit. But they say that yes, it was a white guy. They have a picture of a person who is white.
Matthew Livitzberger,
Livelsberger. And
Green Beret.
apparently he served in the same Fort Liberty. He was as the New Orleans person. So the New Orleans
Mhm.
terrorist. Uh, if that's the case, I mean that's fascinating.
Yeah, no, it's kind of that, like it's almost like lived in the same state as. Like that doesn't mean military bases like at any point in time. That doesn't even mean they were there at the same time. This dude's apparently a Green Beret, like which wouldn't even necessarily interact with
Yeah, but
normal.
but you can meet in all kinds of ways in the military, right? There's like social clubs.
Sure, you
And
can, but I'm just saying that like that you're gonna need more than like wow they both went to the mall at one point in their life. Like
hold on,
you have to line up that it's the same
this
policing
is
at the
more
same
than
time, and
that.
they
But
have
like,
like a
I'm
connection.
not saying making any statements. All I said was like, this is extremely interesting, but I don't know like
But it could also
what
be
to make of
nothing.
it. Yeah, it could be nothing. It could be nothing. But these two individuals who served in the same military installation decided to do this at the same time. That being said, it was January 1st, right? So that's a
Mhm,
significant day. So two individuals can, all right, like I'm gonna make a statement now,
mhm.
right? Where am I gonna make the statement? Okay, well, at the beginning of the year would be a way to do it. So it could be, just a series of horrible coincidences.
Yeah, like the
Um,
like people who write articles, their goal is to find connections. Like that's because that's the story.
this is
That's
a
the
pretty
juice.
big connection, though. This is not like they're
No,
digging,
it's a
right?
it's the it could be a it's an absolute like there two people could do something, and then you could say, wow, both of them use Twitch. Like, isn't that a coincidence? Isn't that something? Is there something going on with
Yeah,
streamers?
yeah, yeah. Hold on. The New Orleans individual suspect, right? He planted explosives. This one involves explosives too. The Tesla one, um, the Las Vegas
Fireworks.
possibly terrorists, right? Like, yeah, he loaded up with not just fireworks but also fuel, right? And it blew it up. Yeah, the thing I saw the footage explosion. That wasn't just fireworks that did that. That was a like full on like miniature nuke that
Yeah,
happened in
but
that
the
Tesla.
the what you call it guy had like actual explosives.
Yeah, whatever. But like, doesn't mean like they. Yeah, I'm not saying they use like the same material, but I'm just saying like these are like some big similarities, right? Like this isn't an example of like, hey, like, well, we've had two school shootings, and turns out both of them play Call of Duty. Like this isn't something as
No,
species as that.
I think this is exactly that. That's what
No
I'm saying. Like
way.
until you have more information, this means like saying that they both like there's only so many military bases in the United States. Like
True.
even saying that they both went to the same base doesn't even mean that they went to the same base at the same time.
Agreed.
So I'm saying that
So
like everyone in the military went to that base. I'm saying that like there's only so many military bases. People cross base like, oh yeah, did you know at one point they both went to Fort Hood? Like, okay, like was it at the same time? No, but they both went there at one point. Like it's military. A lot of people crossing the different bases is military. I'm saying that like I said, it could come out to be absolutely something, but I'm saying right now you've given nothing.
I'm
That's
saying okay, I feel like this isn't something worth arguing about. All I'm saying is that this is more than nothing.
no.
That this isn't some sort of specious connection. Like it's definitely worth reporting, first of all. But it doesn't mean, of course, that like it will be anything. But like it seems a hell of a coincidence. It is a hell of a coincidence in and of itself, right? Um, I'm saying don't
I
draw
mean, it is a
conclusions yet.
coincidence that two people can play Call of Duty because if most people aren't gamers, that's a coincidence. It is that's a hell of a coincidence, but that doesn't show any connection between two people.
Yeah, I mean, I won't. I'm not gonna argue this. I'm not gonna argue this. I'm not gonna do it. Do it. We'll just leave that alone and move past it. Any
Yeah,
which way.
somebody says that co-host on the same Twitch. Yeah, if they shared, like I said, if you making that connection is versus saying that they both were in a base at one point. Like I said, with that you're not even confirming is the same point.
Yeah, hold on, they haven't. They don't know yet. The article I was looking at said haven't confirmed the dates where the Las Vegas explosion guy
Mhm.
like was even there, right?
Yeah.
So, but they were honest. They weren't saying, "Hey, this is a connection." They weren't saying that. Sorry, this is a significant connection. They were like, "This is just a case." These two things that happened the same day were perpetrated by individuals who were part of the same organization and worked out of the same location at some point in time, right?
What
So
if it came
that's
out that they were both left-handed? That would be pretty rare.
I mean,
Maybe it's
I
from something. Maybe
this
the
is this is a
lefties
worthwhile
have the
news
story.
item. It's a worthwhile news item. It's
Mhm.
a uh it's a significant connection, but not enough to draw um a uh um a pattern yet. But like it's a data point that should be investigated, right? And should be um significant enough to be reported. That's it. You
I
don't
don't
have to.
disagree with that.
Okay, well then I don't know what you're arguing me about. That's what I've been
Because
saying the entire
you're saying
time.
it's something. I'm saying it would be
Yeah,
worth
that's what
it would be
something
worth
means.
if they both played the same video game. It'd be worth investigating. Maybe they share chats. That would be worth investigating.
Sure. Okay. Fine. Yes. Go ahead. Whatever.
Yeah.
Well, that was my statement from the very beginning.
Mhm.
It's worth investigating.
Mhm. But I'm just saying that it like anything's worth investigating. We know nothing.
Great. All right. I'll leave it
Mhm.
alone then.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to immigrants. The Trump
Oh,
administration. What? Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I wanted to make my prediction. As far as immigration goes, I don't think like I like people are talking about Elon Musk and Vivek. I I think they're gonna be like faces and they're gonna do some talking, but policy at the end of the day is probably I think it's gonna be pretty heavy handed by Steve Bannon. Um and I don't think that like so I think that it is gonna be pretty staunchly anti-immigrant,
Is Steve
but
Bannon a named advisor? Actually, don't know.
I'm pretty
I mean,
sure
Stephen Miller is going to be an advisor. A very different,
maybe that's what I'm
well,
thinking
not
of.
too
I'm
different
thinking maybe the
person.
wrong Steve, maybe.
He's an extremely racist individual.
Yeah, maybe I'm thinking of Stephen Miller.
Well, they're both racist. So there's.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, Stephen Miller, he's gonna have
Um
a huge hand. But go ahead.
yeah, because he had a huge hand in the last administration's
Mhm.
immigration policy. But yeah, I think that like it's just gonna be the question becomes what is Trump going to be able to legally do via executive order? Because like they can the Fox News and everyone could talk about like wow this was a massive win and it just wasn't like this about to say Biden's win we consider to be close, and Biden's win was like far larger in perspective than what this Trump presidency his win has been. So like I'm not so worried in the fact that by the fact that like Trump's not going to be able to pass legislation, not without like crazy bipartisan support.
No,
But
why
he is
wouldn't he
going
be able to pass legislation? He's got both houses.
because he's going to have a 1 seat majority in the House.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's going to have some level of friction there, but he doesn't need massive majorities to do this, right? Like,
Yeah, of course he does.
we
You need
well, first of all, he has his own majority, period. He has a majority, period, and he can pass with just Republicans. He can pass laws, absolutely.
no.
Like we'll have to see how much division there is within his caucus, but there's only a reason to believe that for all this major legislation, especially when we're talking about immigration, that he'll have plenty of support there and be able to institute caucus discipline and to get those things out. There's no reason to think
What?
otherwise now.
What about his previous presidency? We have every reason
He
to think that Trump isn't going to be. Trump didn't pass any
he did.
legislation in his first term.
He did pass legislation during his term.
What name a
Um,
major piece of legislation Trump passed?
like he did like the
Nancy Pelosi passed
was it the
legislation.
Second Step Act? Oh, no, but he didn't have both houses of Congress. First of all, but he did get legislation passed. He did sign bills into law. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, he signed what Nancy Pelosi allowed him to.
And he like did a massive tax cut for the rich.
Tax cuts aren't really legislation. That's what I'm saying.
Hold on, hold on.
Like that's things he can do.
That's through the budget. No, this is I think that was I'm almost certain this is an act of Congress, like through our tax plan.
Yeah, we have to do budgets.
Yeah, but hold on, but if you're saying, hey, did he get his legislative priorities through? Then he absolutely did get a lot of them through. Not all of them,
he didn't.
thankfully.
He ran on the wall. He got no wall. He got none of that. He got
Yeah,
nothing.
but that wall was the only. Agreed.
The wall was
sure.
his biggest thing.
Well, well, sure. Well,
build the wall was absolutely.
Yeah. That was his slogan, but that doesn't mean he didn't get a lot of other things done. Like I don't. This is like a weird point.
Yeah, like it would be one thing if you could name actual things he's done. All he did was tax cuts.
First of all, I just did, but I can look for more. But like oh, also the second step act or something like that.
Act,
that
was Democrat. The Democrats voted for that.
Yeah, because they didn't have both houses of Congress. So yes, Democrats in that case, right, would have to vote for it. I'm not saying that. Like it's a weird thing. Like you're saying Democrats voted for that. Well, of course, because they had a House of Congress. So of course that's the case.
No, not some Democrats. I'm saying that wasn't Trump legislation. Trump signed it, but I'm pretty sure the majority of the votes were Democrat for that policy.
I see what you're saying. Okay. Trump's first term.
Like I said, Trump's gonna he's gonna do whatever he can to the limits of executive order, and he even talks about it. Like he even admits himself, like he prefers executive. He's like he prefers executive order to legislation. It's just gonna be what he can legally do, and then the second thing comes down to the Supreme Court is probably gonna be more lenient in what they allow him to do. So I think that's the scary part. Not that like Trump's gonna pass some.
The American Presidency Project, huh? I wonder if I can trust this site. Initially weekly. I'm not sure. Small business. Okay, this seems like a press report. Roll back. I don't know. This. Yeah, I feel like I can't trust this site. It seems like a press statement from Trump. What did President Donald Trump accomplish as president? Okay, this is came out October of last year. Anxiety that voters do not have to imagine when Trump but judiciary most lasting impact of the country was the judiciary. Yeah, okay, so he got
judges,
Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Trump's 2017 tax bill. Okay, so act of Congress, not an executive order.
Because we have to do taxes every year. We have to do
colloquial. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was arguably the biggest legislative achievement, which was intended per Trump to supercharge the economy. It was also the biggest tax overhaul since the Tax Reform Act of 1986. Now, I think this is a separate act, a separate tax bill. But I can't be sure about that. Rather than like the yearly, like a yearly adjustment, I think this is like a separate bill, but I could be wrong. The Brookings Institute said it's skewed toward the rich and fails to deliver promised economic benefits, but whatever. One ambiguous takeaway: U.S. corporations got to keep their money, and the U.S. government got less. Space Force, but that might have been a presidential act. It was a stuff of jokes, mockery when Trump announced 2018. I think the Space Force, a lot of people mock the Space Force. I think is one of the best things he actually did.
Yeah, it actually probably was a good idea.
Yeah.
To separate them from the Air Force.
Yeah, this probably almost certainly was an act of Congress. Now I'm thinking, but just 1 year after the official founding 2019 developed the theoretic concept. Said, well, the Space Force budget. Yeah, I'm almost certain this is the act of Congress, Space Force. Almost certain. Because I don't know how you create a branch of the military without.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it was. But I don't think when I think of that, I'm saying I'm sure that if we go look at the votes for that was probably Democrats supported bill.
Death of. Okay.
If you think I'm saying that there's gonna be no bills passed during his presidency, maybe let me correct myself. I'm saying there's not gonna be any bills passed that the Democrats don't want to be passed. outside of
I don't,
Congress.
yeah, and then I disagree with that. I disagree. Oh, sorry. Hmm, um, I don't think that. Well, I can't be sure of anything, right? I'm just saying that,
Mhm.
um, like that's too strong of a statement. That's all. It's too strong of a statement. He has majorities in both houses of Congress, and he will. There's no reason to think that Republicans won't be able to um get have a level of caucus discipline to pass some of his major acts, right? Immigration reform. I don't see why. Like they'd have to. I mean, I can't underestimate the politician's ability to like fumble the ball, right? So it's true, but like it's a pretty big fumble if you have both houses of Congress and they can't get this through. Then they
I'm,
have it. So
maybe that I mean, like, maybe this is a difference in expectations, and maybe this is like what upsets you with Democrats. You believe that like, oh, okay, if we have 50-50, if we have a 50-50 Senate and a +1 in the House, then you can just push through whatever legislation you want.
I don't think that. Um, do I think that?
No, I'm asking like because you're saying that like, wow, Trump can do whatever he wants. He's got +1 in the House,
I didn't
and
say he
like
could do whatever.
and
I didn't say he could do whatever he wants. I'm
or
saying,
major things. Like there would be a huge fumble to not be able to pass major things with
yeah,
plus
it
in the
would be a
House.
huge fumble.
I
Actually,
think
it
this
would
is
have been.
that's what I'm saying. I think that this will come from a difference of perspective of like, and this may be why, like, this isn't even me, like, this is me having trying to understand you. This may be a difference in our political philosophy on why we would be, I guess, our expectations for politicians or the expectations of our legislative branch. They're like, you have +1, you should be able to get major things through. And I say, you have +1, you're probably not going to be able to get anything through.
Um, it's +1 in the House, right?
Hmm.
Correct.
Yeah, and I think
Um,
like maybe +3 in the Senate. The Senate's better than the House for them.
um, depends because like the filibuster is still a thing. So I'm not sure if they're gonna get rid of that. They might, which would be hilarious if they did.
Mm.
Um, so if they don't get rid of the filibuster, then it's actually better for them in the House because in the House, like a simple majority, you can get everything through.
Hmm.
And if they
And I think the
do, well, then it'd be
Republicans have
better.
already shown there's some that have already like shown even with his like cabinet picks, they're like, oh, okay, you're not getting through who you want like on everyone.
No,
Like the
I hear you.
Republicans will
That
push back.
I'm not saying that I'm not saying that Republicans are all on the same page here. I'm saying that for like his major uh like the biggest things that the things that tend to unite the GOP base, right?
Tax
Um
cuts. You'll get that.
that's one of them, sure, yeah. But immigration like is one of them, right? Like there's and it's not just that he has a majority, it's that like he has the ability to put pressure, great pressure on these individuals. And he's going to be putting pressure not on to get them to do something that would be uncharacteristic for a Republican, get a pressure for them to do something that's very characteristic for a Republican, which would be hard to take a hardline stance on immigration. So, like, to get a few recalcitrant, and there going to be some, right? Some recalcitrant Republicans who are iffy on voting for this because they maybe they live at they
You're
work
about
in
to
a
say live in a
purple state.
purpler
Yeah, exactly.
district.
Yeah,
I'm about to say
yeah.
because it's not
So
it's not even like state reps. That's the biggest. That's the other thing with the House. It's like you have to say like, oh, Republicans are winning its state, and but that like when you break down districts, there's going to be like purpley districts where Republicans have made like promises to not vote in favor of radical immigration reform, and then there's going to be even pretty hard red districts towards like South Texas that like have like a lot of farmland that depends on that labor who are gonna have like they may be like pro tax cuts and all the other things, but they're gonna know that like the local farmers and people who fund their campaigns actually benefit
I
from
hear you.
the immigration, and then even if they don't vote no, they're just not gonna show up that day. Like that's the thing. Like there's
Oh
such a
yeah, vote
majority.
president. I hear. Um, I think So
And the
I'm
fact that
like
all we need is
all these
one, that
other
would be the
things.
thing.
What I was saying before was just agreeing with you on that point. Like you're
Mhm,
agreeing with the thing I just said. That
mhm.
hey, they're going to be individuals with different political realities that they're facing. Um, there I think there are plenty of reasons to believe that they can put the number of pressure. But even if they need Democrat votes, right? Like the statement you made at the start of this is that they'll need massive bipartisan support. That I don't see why they would need that. Even if they, because at the same time, just as what you said, that some individuals are in purple states, right,
Mhm.
who don't want to be too hard, right? There are others on in Democrats purple states who also want to who want to show that they're tough on immigration, right? Um, like there seems to be plenty of room for deal making there to grab a view without saying that the Democrats writ whole that approve of this thing, that the Democrats by and large might vote against that bill, but still they have some individuals who don't assist.
Um, that like I said, I think that would require a level of a deal making that I don't think the Republicans have the skill to do, because it would be like, what do you have to offer? Like I don't know. And again, we'll see, and one of us will be right, and one of us will be wrong, or and probably both be right in different cases. But like when I see how the Democrats, like I don't, they're not even sure if they're going to be able to keep what you call it, the Speaker of the House.
Yeah, Mike Johnson. Yeah, Mike
Yeah,
Johnson
but
is.
that's how like the Republicans are in like tears right now. And you would think there would be like a Democrat that's like, oh, maybe we can just go get one of them. But the Democrats seem pretty lockstep. No, we're not going to help you on this.
Hmm, hopefully, we'll see. I'm not entirely sure they will be lockstep, but I hope they are. And to watch them flail, the Republicans flail on this.
I mean, they
But
were as far as the government shutdown, like because the Republican, like Elon made them pull out on the agreed to deal, um, for to bring down the page number from 1,500 or whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And like, yeah, not a single Democrat, like, it's not even voted no. Like, some may have abstained, but like, that's all they have to do. They, even if you feel differently about it, like, okay, all I need you to do is you don't have to, we don't gotta go vote no for your purple district. Just go do something else. just go play
Yeah, I
golf that
mean,
day.
yeah, they vote president, so the way they
Yeah.
do that. Yeah, yeah, I don't know. So I'm not taking a hard stance that like this will definitely be the case. I'm just saying that like all signs point to them be able to get through significant portions of Trump's legislative agenda, um, and without needing a mass of Democrats to do so. But I mean, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. Like, I guess I don't care enough. Uh, I mean, we'll
Yeah,
see.
but I mean, I guess yeah. The thing I was saying is like, but yeah, I'm about to say backing up a few steps. Like I said, I think the bigger word with Trump is going to be like I said, what he can do as far as EO, and I think that this Supreme Court will likely allow him to do more than most is with as far as executive orders go, because I've lost almost all faith in the current makeup of the Supreme Court.
Um, you've lost all faith. What does that mean?
Like not complete, but almost all. Like it doesn't seem that the court as it's currently made doesn't seem to be um nonpartisan actors just like like interpreting law to their perspective, be that conservative or liberal. It seems that the court is not directly, but like one adjacent step away from directly working in the benefit and favor of Trump.
Oh, I mean,
Like I don't know what he could do. Like the fact that like they made the steps to give like presidents like complete criminal immunity, like tells me like what line won't they cross for him? What won't they say like, oh, I don't see it in the text? I feel like if he says something, they'll like BS. Like, yeah, that's textual. That's Constitution.
Yeah,
But you know,
if my friend Latred was here, I'm sure he would argue vehemently against this. I don't know. Um, uh, I look. I don't have faith in the court. I also don't have faith that what's her face uh the Hispanic Latin Supreme Court justice.
no, oh God, goodness, what is her name?
Um,
Alito? No, that's
Alito.
Sotomayor.
Sotomayor, yeah.
Tanya Sotomayor. Yeah.
The Alito
I was going
sound.
through the names in my head. I was like, which
Okay.
ones these names sound?
I know.
I was like, Hagen, Gorsuch, Alito. No, that's not it. That's a guy. Sam. I was
Yeah,
like, Sotomayor.
Sotomayor. I don't have faith that she'll even survive the term. One thing I do know is that a few of the older ones, like Thompson, or
Yeah,
Thompson,
Thomas. Yeah,
not
Clarence Thomas.
Thomas, Clarence Thomas. He's gonna retire. He's gonna do the smart thing, right? He's gonna retire, and by the smart thing is he's probably also gonna be paid to retire,
Handsomely.
by the same donors who have been the benefactor the entire time that he's been working for, by the exact same individuals. And conservatives seem to like want to ignore that story. Interesting, right? This person who's been paid by a highly conservative billionaire, and who's actually ruled on business he had in front of the court. Huh? Interesting how that works, right? And he's been giving them gifts for decades, it seems. So it's just interesting how that works. But Clarence Thomas is probably going to get a massive golden parachute to fuck off the court, so they can put someone brand new and young, and maybe not Gorsuch, someone else, maybe Gorsuch.
Someone else is old, dude.
Someone else is also leaving. As well. At least
Did you know that Amy Coney Barrett? Like, when I seen this, I almost didn't believe it. Like, I know that Supreme Court is a different pathway. It's not like they just pick like completely random. They have like people have an idea like when they get on that career path, and it happens. It can happen quicker than others. But Amy Coney Barrett had only been a judge 3 years, like period. She's only been a judge 3 years before being seated on the Supreme Court of the United States.
You also there aren't requirements for court. Just like there aren't requirements for Speaker of the House. For both of those positions, you can put anyone. In fact, during the George W. Bush administration, he got a lot of flack because he was going to put this woman there. I'm not sure if she had any legal training. I forget what it was with her. She was some sort of lobbyist or something. I forget what her background was, but he tried to put this woman on the court, and it became a huge scandal because she had like no qualifications to do so. And I don't think his own party even backed him up on this one. But still, like you actually can. They could put me in Supreme Court justice or our friend Bam, or we could be Speaker of the House. Any of us could be, as long as you're American citizen. I think. That's really your only.
It's crazy. And Ketanji Brown Jackson had been a judge like I think like almost a decade, like maybe like 9 years.
But she's a DEI hire. I don't see.
Longer than, yeah, it's like how could she possibly be qualified? I'm like,
how could she be qualified?
Yeah.
Did you not see her skin color? Like, yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating how that works. But the point is that the judiciary will be further altered, right? So we're 2025 predictions. I don't know. Actually, I can't be sure it's going to happen this year. They might wait, like Clarence Thomas, right? Might ride this until like maybe 3 years in, right? Because he likes being in power, likes to be feted and lauded for everything. Maybe on Trump's third year, where they got plenty of runway, he'll like step out, and then they'll get a replacement. But that's going to happen. And so like the question is not whether we will get new Supreme Court justices. We will. 100%. It's going to happen. That's going to, we will do that. The question is, right now it's a 6-3 split, right? whether there will be a 7-2 split, or maybe even but a 7-2 split. Whether Sotomayor, who is not in great health, whether she'll survive these 4 years. Well, we could very well be another RBG situation where this woman was told, you gotta leave, you gotta get off the court, you're fucking old. Like, we can't be sure of the future here, lady.
Well,
Get
she's
the
not
fuck
that
off
old. It's more of a health thing. I'm about to say she's
No.
realistically she's not that
I
old.
know. I didn't say that. I'm talking about RBJ.
Oh, RBG, yeah.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg, yeah. RBG? Did I say RBJ? Sorry, excuse me. RBG, excuse me. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, yeah. That, like, she was like, Obama talked to her, right? He's like, hey, like, it'd be great if we could replace you. It would be great if you could step down. And she's like, no, I got it. Nah, she's like, I got it. She didn't have it. She didn't have it, and she died under the Trump administration.
But technically, what you call it was still deserving. Like, Obama still was supposed to have a replacement. Merrick Garland should be on the Supreme Court.
Oh, right, yeah, and the Democrats fumbled the ball there. Yeah, but the Democrats still.
What did the Democrats do? The Republicans didn't. The Republicans had the votes. They didn't pass it, which is like unprecedented. They just decided, like, yeah, we know we've done this for the entirety of American history. Yeah, never mind.
I believe the Democrats had the Senate at the time. I could be wrong about that. I'm pretty sure they had the Senate at the time.
No, Obama didn't have the Senate.
Thought he did. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be misremembering. I don't remember. I'm not a court watcher. I gotta say, I'm not a court watcher. I don't feel like looking this up. Whatever. But in any case, yeah, I mean, the Republicans did the smart thing. They played. No, yeah, you're probably right. They probably had it. I think Mitch McConnell was in charge of the Senate at the time. But they did the smart thing, and like, hey, we're just not going to play ball. Like the Obama, like
it was like over a year. They was like, yeah, we're not going to do it this close to election. It was like this is near over a year, and then like, nah, we're too close. And then who did what you call doing within like 100 days of an election? Trump.
Yeah, Trump. Yeah. They basically made a rule that said, like, oh, well, if you're this distance from an election, right? Like, if you're this close to an election, which was like, it was like a year and a half. It was like a year and a half, right? Like, well, we have to wait until after the election to see the will of the people, and then we can do it. It wouldn't be fair, right? This is never a fucking rule. This is never a thing, right? And then, it turned out, and so they stalled, and so Merrick Garland never got in, right? So they stalled, and then Trump happened to get elected. And they're like, holy fuck, yes. And then as soon as Trump got in, they put in his pick, which was I don't think it was Gorsuch. It was the other Kavanaugh? One, right? I think it was Kavanaugh, but I could be wrong about that. It's one of them. And so that. But then when Trump was about to face an election, a seat opened up, and it was like within that range, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it
was way close. Like it was like 100 days. Like we were in campaign season. Like like we weren't even in campaign season with Obama, but it was like we were like already like through. We were like in primaries, and they're like, wait a minute, what happened? And they just didn't. They just didn't say anything.
They're like, what?
Sucks to suck.
The niggas, of course we were lying.
Oh my goodness. There's a oh god, who is it in South Carolina's senator, the white one?
South Carolina senator. I don't know. Oh, you mean Lindsey Graham? Lindsey
Graham. There is a video of Lindsey Graham saying, like, verbatim, he says that, yeah, he said I'll vote no because if it's in the last year of a presidency, I'll never vote in favor of doing it. He said, and in 4 years, if the Republicans, if the Republican president is up, and there's like blah blah, like there's a seat comes available, then you'll just be able to look at me and say that, wow, Lindsey Graham, you're a liar. Like he said verbatim, and then they did it, and they played it in front of him, and then he just
fucked off. It's now. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is how
It's like you call me what you want, but like I do and it was like it pissed me off so like it looked like I've never wanted to hit someone in the mouth I don't know like more than like watching the video of it, and it's like,
to.
oh my god,
He
you sick.
doesn't. Yeah, but
And he's like, it
but
doesn't
first of
matter.
all, like Lindsey Graham has been called a lot worse things than a
Yeah.
liar, right? He's a filthy sycophant. He's a bootlicker, right? Like he gets his
Lindsey
nose
Graham doesn't
deep in
even
the
like
ass.
Trump. Lindsey Graham probably hates Trump as much as
He
we do, but
he loves
he will
power.
suck his dick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my God. Yeah. For anyone
and
and anyone in a position of power and strength, he will bend immediately. Right. He's willing to serve whoever will be his daddy. Right. Within power. Like he did that for John McCain. Famously, John McCain. He was on his dick forever. Right. They were his butt buddy. But then after John McCain left, he was like completely lost. Right. He even ran for president. Right. I think during the 2016 election where when Trump was when Trump was doing it, he ran for president, tried to pretend that he is a big man, he has some sort of a backbone. He has no fucking backbone. But talked about like how he hated Trump. Trump fucking put his private number like on blast. He like did to a crowd. Do you remember this moment?
I don't.
Oh my God! There's like, go look it up, please, guys. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Trump was at a campaign rally, right? Him and Lindsey Graham were like beefing, right? And Trump, like at this campaign rally, like takes out a cell phone, right? And he's like, "You want to know Lindsey Graham's number?" And he like reads out his number to his audience, just as a fuck you to Lindsey Graham. And so then Lindsey Graham immediately gets a flood of messages, right? And so he has to change his number. And he actually even did a whole video of this, right? Because there's a video of Lindsey Graham. It was like an internet, like a it's a very YouTube video that he did for some outlet, right? Where like he took his phone and he like took like a bat and like smashed it all he had to get a new one. But like it was a big fuck you, right? And all the time like Lindsey Graham was like, I'm going to be a bulwark against Trump, and as soon as Trump won, folded immediately, right?
Yeah.
Between John McCain and Lindsey Graham, John McCain and Trump, right? There was uh, Lee Stefanik, right? This is a woman. She was another senator, but she was at that point like she had a lot of power. I'm not sure if she ran for president. I forget. But she had a lot of power. People were talking about her name was in the zeitgeist, right? And he didn't have John McCain. He didn't know who it would be, so he decided to bow in terms of her. And he would see her just like he did with John McCain, right? When he would just be walking around the Capitol, he was following Lee Stefanik, right, around the Capitol, because desperately looking for power to serve. Like it's unbelievable how naked of a political actor, of a base sycophant that this person is. It's unbelievable.
I
There's
don't
no
know what
one like
South
him.
Carolina does to like let him keep winning. Like,
They
about to
just
say,
don't care.
Can you see share my screen? I just want people to hear this.
Why don't you put it on the screen?
I am. I'm saying it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, hold on. 1 second. Let me know what the
This will
volumes.
stand the test.
You can hear it.
This is the last year of a lame duck president. And if Ted Cruz or Donald Trump get to be president, they've all asked us not to confirm or take up a selection by President Obama. So if a vacancy occurs in their last year of their first term, guess what? You will use their words against them. I want you to use my words against me. If there's a Republican president in 2016 and a vacancy occurs in the last year of the first term, you can say, Lindsey Graham said, let's let the next president, whoever it might be, make that nomination. And you could use my words against me, and you'd be absolutely right. We're setting a precedent here today, Republicans are, that in the last year,
Like it's
at
so
least of a lame
direct.
duck 8-year
Yeah.
term, I would say it's going to be a 4-year term, that you're not going to fill a vacancy of the Supreme Court based on what we're doing here today. That's going to be the new rule. When y'all
The
change
new
the rules
rule.
about appellate judges and district court judges to get your way, I thought it was a really abuse of power. And what you have done here is you've made the caucuses, the Republican and Democratic caucuses, are now not going to have to reach across the aisle when it comes to appellate judges and district court judges to get input from us, or we get input from you. So what does that mean? That we're going to pick the most hard-ass people we can find and dare somebody
Okay, is
into
there anything else?
Yeah,
Congress.
This part?
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, there's a hold on one second. Let me go back to them like when they brought it up against
Are you
Kavanaugh.
aware that
He immediately is like,
at 9:23,
hold on.
partisan FBI investigation?
I did not know that at the time.
If you wanted an FBI investigation, you could have come to us. What you want to do is destroy this guy's life,
He's so
hold
pathetic.
this seat open, and hope you win in 2020. You've said that, not me. You've got nothing to apologize for. When you see Sotomayor and Kagan, tell them that Lindsay said hello.
He's
Because I voted for
fantastic
them.
at fake outrage.
I would never do to them what you've done to this guy. This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics. And if you really wanted to know the truth, you sure as hell wouldn't have done what you've done to this guy. Are you a gang rapist?
Oh, it's disgusting.
Do you have the clip where they confront him?
Oh, I think, yeah, let me see. I'll have to find it. It'll give
Okay.
me so you can take me down. But
Okay.
I remember when they asked him about it.
Yeah, Lindsey Graham is a disgusting political act, and he just like looks for his entire political career, right? He looks for a new daddy, a new person to follow and to serve. Yeah, so there's that. So yeah, hopefully Sotomayor survives, right? Another 4 years, and hopefully we get to replace Trump with hopefully get to replace Trump, period. Well, we'll see if democracy survives. But in any case, hopefully we can replace her with him with a Democrat. But like Sotomayor, she thought, what pissed me off about Sotomayor is that she thought it was insulting. Lots of people were insulted on her behalf for asking. What? We just went through this. We really just went through this. We went through this, right? And then everyone who was like, on RBG's, Ruth Bader Ginsburg's side before, and saying that, oh yes, well, she deserves. It's insulting, right? To suggest that she should leave the court, right? When she died, they're like, it's a disaster. Why didn't she leave? They all changed. They all, from almost to a man, every single one of them changed position. Like, this was a complete a foreseeable disaster. Why didn't anyone do anything about this before? So that's stupid. And they'll do it again for Sotomayor, right? If she dies during a Trump administration, right? The liberal wailing of these individuals. And the thing that annoys me even worse about it is that, like, this inherent to that argument is that these people deserve their power, right? That they this privilege that we allow them to be on the high court, right? Once they have it, like, well, it's some sort of entitlement. They're not entitled to this position, right? The reason why we're putting them up there is to serve at the pleasure of the American people, but honestly, also to serve at the pleasure of their caucus, whatever that put them in place, right? That's actually the naked political truth of the matter. Like it. Because if like presidents thought they would rule against them, then they would nominate them, right? So there's a plain political power. Like, you need to be pushing for the group, right? Even if you're not like ruling at every point in time in the most partisan fashion, fair, right? Like that's fine. But you need to be pushing for the group. And so if you once you're on the court, you start like talking about like how you've worked all your life. I don't give a fuck about that. The point is like will we like do you care about future generations, or do you just care about your own legacy? Like, is that it? And that's what we see all the time. And that's what we saw with Biden. Fuck Biden. Biden said, implied heavily, and many voters thought so as well, that he was going to be a one-term president. But then he decided, I I mean, if it's explicitly, right? But I let you believe that because I'm a fucking liar. Yeah. And so I'm gonna run again. Even before his 2020 election, he had signs of mental decline, cognitive decline, and so and by the time 2024 came around or 2023 came around, it was quite obvious, and the people around him knew it was quite obvious that he had a mental decline, and they hid it from us. The Democratic Party, the leadership, up and down, hid this from the American public until it was too much to bear, and it became a complete fucking public disaster. And because of them, right? Because of them wanting to hold on to power and thinking that Joe Biden somehow entitled to this, and he sacrificed so much for the country. He sacrificed nothing for the country. Nothing did this man sacrifice for the country. But they say this all the time. They said this in the DNC, right? The Democratic National Convention. Now there was multiple standing applauses for Biden, but not even when Biden wasn't even there, right? We're like when the speech for Obama and Michelle Obama, right, and Barack Obama and Clinton when they were there. Talking about the sacrifice Joe Biden just made he made no fucking sacrifices. He just wanted power this entire time. He wanted to hold on to that power, and then when it was completely and utterly untenable, did he finally give it up. Fuck Joe Biden and fuck Sotomayor, especially if she dies on the bench during a Republican presidency. Like, fuck
I'm
her
so
too.
glad I was muted because you were speaking bad against my favorite president, Joe Biden. I did find the thing though.
Okay.
My bad. It took me a second.
That's fine.
All right.
Supreme Court. When Justice Scalia died in February of 2016, Senate Republicans refused to consider a replacement for his seat until after the election. At the time, Senator McConnell said, the American people should have a voice in the selection of their next Supreme Court justice. When asked in October 2000,
He knows it's coming up.
Yeah.
if Republicans intended to honor their own rule if an opening were to come up in 2020, Chairman Graham promised, quote, if an opening comes in the last year of President Trump's term and the primary process has started, we'll wait till after the next election. Republicans should honor this word for their promise and let the American people be heard.
And he just like looks away. He's just like, whoop.
No one actually like showed them the video and did that. There's someone should.
No. This is what I was thinking. No one from the press pressed him on it, which is it was crazy.
Absolutely fucking should have, right? And this is why the failing of the mainstream press, right? Like a clip like this, right? Like something like that should how does he? Because Lindsey Graham is a creature of like the Sunday morning shows. He's always there, like always trying to be invited, always trying to get in front of the camera. This man, there's not a camera out there he doesn't like. He doesn't want to be in front of, right? And so why isn't he hounded all the time? When there's rank hypocrisy that we all know, that we all can see, right? How are they allowed to come on these without answering them? Like every reporter, he should be terrified of reporters, right? He should be running from them constantly because they don't have to ask him again. Hey, you remember that the lie that you made, right? That you made a specific promise and then you completely backtracked on that. Could you answer for this? What are your thoughts on this? He shouldn't be allowed to put out another message, right? Some sort of political goal he has. He shouldn't be allowed to use the media as an outlet for that until, of course, he answers for the hypocrisy previously. But these reporters are like, they'll Mobile Weekly, hey, we have a question about the judge, the thing, and they'll say, no, fuck off. And they'll, oh, I'm so sorry. What did you want to talk about? Let me write that down. I
don't know if that's mainstream. I'm pretty sure press passes, even a lot of modern media, smaller media has press passes.
I don't know why you bring up press passes.
Oh, I thought you were talking about media and addressing things. I was assuming you were talking about people who have access to
It's okay to have a press pass, but that means that you just are closer to power, and you should be using that access to hold power to account. If you're using that access just for access, well then you're worse than useless. In fact, you're oftentimes a hindrance because you won't ask the important questions. You'll end up laundering the talking points to the American people. So yeah, you probably can go fuck yourself too. Yeah.
No, I'm sure, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know if that's like if that's an issue. I don't know if that issue lies with like, oh, it's mainstream media, because I'm saying like I'm pretty sure alternative media like members have press passes, like have people that are able to ask these questions, and they don't either.
Alternative media.
Like,
I
consider the
guess
Hill.
if you want to expand my criticism to people who are outside of quote unquote mainstream who also don't ask the questions, well then yes, I mean even if they're not working for an established journalistic outlet, yeah, if you aren't holding power to account, especially when clear out in the open hypocrisy happens like that, well then yes, you all also are worthless. Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think that it's not just there. It's the you know how my beef with populism, but I feel like populists sometimes like miss the mark, and like the establishment is the problem, and that means everything that's anti-establishment is good. Like, is
Oh yeah,
doing the good work.
that's not what I was implying. Sorry, I didn't mean to imply that. No.
I know I'm not, but it's a way, it's a framing thing. Like whenever people talk about like mainstream media, it's usually a follow up. But I understand that you like think deeper than that. But
Yeah,
like
that's fair.
Tim Pool is anti-establishment, quote unquote. But I don't
Yeah,
think that like
no, quote unquote. That
I
definitely,
mean in the way that he
definitely big quotes.
talks, in the way that he postures.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, he
Mhm.
postures himself. But no, I hear you. And I think that's a fair criticism. In general, of like to be anti-establishment, just to be anti-establishment, to position outside forces as inherently better when they haven't actually proven themselves to be, right? Like
Mhm.
just to say that like the establishment is always lying when that's clearly also not the case, right? Like this is actually a quite nuanced discussion of how has the establishment, how we define that, failed us, like try to define those things, and then have a critique based around that, and see like, okay, well, if there's alternatives, are those alternatives meeting those deficiencies?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's like the wider conversation. But as so often is the case for any sort of sloganeering, right? Like the conversation gets flattened to like, hey, the establishment is bad. And that's it,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, I think that's like Cenk Uygur is like catching a lot of flack from the left right now because he's a known like anti-establishment pro-populism guy. Like if anything, if there's anyone, and you might disagree, but I think generally from political issue to political issue, Cenk is probably the closest to your politics, I would think. Like, do you feel like you check out anything on TYT? Do you feel like, oh God, I vehemently disagree?
So I watch TYT every day for years.
Mhm.
And I also watch Sam Cedars Majority Report every day for years. And those are two different programs, right? One, Sam
Mhm.
Cedars like significantly farther left than TYT, especially in recent years. Um, I do agree a lot with Cenk Uygur. Um, and now like those two shows are have strenuous disagreements and are fighting like the
Mhm.
between each other because Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian are making moves in which they are reaching out to people on the right and like
Yeah, like that's what I was
trying
gonna
to
say.
build
Like they're
bridges.
talking to Charlie Kirk, like they're saying like, but Charlie Kirk's anti-establishment, and it's like that doesn't mean anything that Charlie Kirk does or represents is like good.
No. I don't think
I'm
that's
not
not the
saying
case.
you, but I think that's what like Jink's argument.
No. Oh, well, yeah, sure. But I think it's more than that. He's trying to say, well, like, he's looking for right populists, anyone
Mhm.
who can be a right wing populist, and seeing if they're bridges to build. He's not saying that he's good. Like I've watched their coverage. I've seen them many times criticize and make fun of and dunk on Charlie Kirk. It's happened. There's a whole list of videos of them doing exactly that and talking about all the ways he's a dishonest piece of shit, right? The argument is that
Populists
in
are
the-
easily swayed. So if I can just like be on this side, I can sway them over to me.
no,
Maybe not Charlie,
they-
but the people who watch Charlie.
No, I don't think it's that either. I think he's not even saying they're. Oh, actually, I don't know. I can't be sure, but that hey, there are some agreements, right? That we can have some agreements on some issues, right? We come from an anti-establishment stance, right? And if you actually do, obviously a lot of the audience, a lot of the host of grifters and a lot of the audience members don't actually mean it, right? Fair. But there are individuals out there who actually do mean that they are anti-establishment or have. Sorry, let's even change the frame a little bit. They have anti-establishment gripes, right? Things they want addressed. Okay. If it's about labor, well, let's talk about that. If it's about like how corporate the power of corporations reigning in corporate power, right? Well, then we can be an ally there. That among this crowd there are allies to be made, and why not work with them, right? Even as temporary uneasy allies to make some sort of progress. I think that this is a laudable goal. Like, I think this is fine. Now, I have big disagreements with Cenk on maybe how he's doing these things and like the extent to which he's gone to war with individuals on the left, right? For that, like, I don't like a lot of the things that's happened while this fight has been taking place within like the online, commentary sphere. I think on both sides, like, there's been a lot of nonsense that like didn't need to happen, a lot of arguing that didn't need to happen. I think there could be plenty of room for people like Cenk, and there's plenty of room for people who are more, hardline. I'll just use that term, leftist. And I don't like this like group think that is trying to be imposed to say that, well, you can't have heterodox thoughts, that like you have to be pure. I think there's a lot of purity testing that's happening.
TYT was like the founders of purity testing.
Um,
I was say, and maybe it's just subject to being in the
I
space the longest, but the TYT was based around like how someone, like some person doing some good thing had some crazy position or whatnot, like that. That's how they built their brand.
I don't know if
I
that's
don't
the
care.
case. I don't think that's true.
Okay, well, I'm about to say I do. We can disagree about that.
Yeah,
but,
like, give me
it's
examples.
not. Okay, we can go back. This isn't the crux of my thing, but sure, I can go back to older TYT. The only reason why I'm saying it's not the crux, because even if I show something like, oh yeah, this is them talking about it 12 years ago, it would be irrelevant to who they are now.
Okay,
But-
all right, well, we can move past it. We can.
But I don't think I'm avoiding. I do want to do it. Like I said, it would take a little more digging.
Okay,
But
yeah, sure.
I
sure.
feel it like to be true. What you call it? Like even if you say now that because Anna, because I think Anna Kasparian, even her current reawakening is based around her believing that I used to think everyone on the right was crazy. I was told to hate them, and
Yeah.
now I
Mhm.
realize maybe they're just human beings and they're not so bad. So like to some degree, she's admitting to some level of purity testing that she used to.
No, that's
buy
not
into.
purity testing. That's a different thing, right? That's saying that I was told that the other side are complete enemies, and it turns out they're like regular human beings. Purity testing would be like I need to police my own side so that they don't fall out of line, or like you have to like have these sets of beliefs. You don't have all these sets of beliefs. Well, then you've broken from the group and need to be like thrown
Well,
out.
I think she said she was
That's
doing
not
the
pure
same as
testing.
well until like she said she ended up on the other side of it with the like the robbery thing and the birth in person thing.
Yeah, so
And she was like, "Oh
the
wow!" And
robbery?
she
Oh,
said
yeah,
somebody
fine.
tried to like mug her in her neighborhood, and then they thought she was talking about a black guy, and it's like it wasn't even a black guy.
I don't remember that part.
Yeah, she was talking about how she was scared, and she's like, "Oh yeah, like crime is a problem, in some neighborhoods." Yeah, she was talking about basically it's a thing you can look into, but
Yeah.
she was basically saying that like, "Oh crap, it's like I used to like hold these positions of people too," which she said now that I experienced it, like, and I was just talking about the issues of crime, people came out and thought that I was being racist or I like didn't understand the value, like maybe that person was going through something, or maybe they were robbing to feed their family of 4 orphan children, or whatever. And she felt like, no, this is stupid. Like, I can say crime is bad.
I know.
Um,
Oh, go ahead.
but the broader point I'm saying is like, even if this is where what they believe, and they believe that like, hey, let's just agree on what we can agree on, and let's build bridges. I think the important part of a bridge is it takes some level of like mutual effort.
Okay.
Like if I go 99% of the way and you go 1, I don't think like I don't know if
Okay.
that's a healthy form of bridge building. Like when Zeke went on Charlie Kirk, like he said that like, oh, we're gonna agree and disagree sometimes, and I understand knowing where you're at and how you talk. Like maybe you're not gonna point out the most controversial like hot button issues if you're trying to like present yourself in like as like a reasonable guy. So somewhat I get that, but like he takes as like, yeah, this was a good thing, but Charlie Kirk gave him nothing. Like Charlie Kirk, even when he tried to like throw like simple bones, like, oh yeah, maybe trans people should be allowed to exist, and it's like, actually, or should be allowed to have housing, and it's like, actually, housing isn't a right. And then like everybody's like, yeah, Charlie, boo, Jink, and he just kind of laughed it off. Like it basically was like Jink going on there, and he said, yeah, say you're a bitch, Jink. Say Trump is your daddy, and we'll pat you on the head like a good boy, and like let you play with us. And like, but the only thing that they actually quote unquote agreed on was speaking negatively about the Democrats. Like, yeah, the Democrats suck, right? Yeah, they suck, and like anti-establishment is good. Like, yeah, like Jink, tell us more as a person on the left why the Democrats suck. And that was basically the entirety of the project. But like, I don't think he walked away gaining any concessions, even slight concessions from Charlie.
Okay. So I hear you and I understand what you're trying to say. I didn't see that whole thing. I did see the I believe I saw the trans thing that you're referring to.
Mhm.
And I thought it was poorly done as well. And yeah, so like I said, I have big disagreements with how Jink has been executing this. I think the project is laudable, but how they've been doing it, maybe not so much. That
Yeah, I think the project's notable. I think the project's noble too. I think the idea of like, oh yeah, we should be able to have conversation. We should be able to find mutual concessions and common ground. Like, I think that there's tons of value in that. But you actually have to do that. You have to like, I watched him do a conversation with Mark Lamont Hill, and I just have so much respect for Mark Lamont Hill as a person, even
yeah,
if I disagree
same
with him
here.
something. He just
Yeah,
seems really principled
he
and like
fought against
on.
Israel. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, even if we disagree on something, but he was talking to Jink about that, and he was saying that like he even said like, I understand what your concept was. He said, but if you were on stage with Netanyahu, because that actually Israel came up, he's like, do you think you would play that conversation the same way? Do you feel like you would be as soft? And Jink was like, no, I would share the stage with Netanyahu to fight him. And it's like, well, why didn't you fight Charlie? Why didn't you take this time to fight, like, you know, like do the duty that you want to say,
Well,
that you want
wait,
to
hold
do.
on,
And
hold on.
the example he used was slavery, and it was
Okay.
such a perfect example. He was saying that like if this is
Who
like
is he? Who is he?
Mark Lamont Hill.
Okay, Mark Lamont Hill saying. Okay.
Mark Hill made the example of slavery. He said if someone goes on stage like in 1860 and 1855 and says, you know what, I believe all people deserve freedom, rights, in the right of liberty and pursuit of happiness.
Yep.
Like if you just say that, everyone will clap and like you think like, see, I did the thing, but you're not really doing the thing if they don't consider the slaves to be people. You need to specify. You need to say, and by that I include slaves. Because if you
Okay.
don't say that, you can get a clap, you can get the applause out of people, but they're thinking you're agreeing with them because you're trying to be so vague that you're like you're avoiding the
rather
crux.
than
You're
like,
avoiding them.
yeah, I see what you're
So
saying.
Jinx saying that like, yeah, you know, the establishment is like, yeah, we hate mainstream media, right? Woo! Like,
Yeah, you
crap.
didn't
Mark
go into
Lamont Hill's
detail.
example was that includes Fox News. Because like Fox News is the most watched. Like we understand all these people
yeah.
do watch Fox News. And if you don't say that part out loud, they're just going to talk
Mm.
about CNN. They're going to think CNN and MSNBC, and
Mm.
like you have to say it. Like,
That's fair.
and at that point,
That's fair.
like you know, at that point, even if it's tough, at least you've been, you know, you can be fair and you can posture and you can frame things in the right way. But like you have to say the quiet part out loud, or you didn't really say anything at all. You just left them. They walked away feeling like, wow, he agreed with us.
Yeah. Okay. But then I haven't seen like YouTube has been recommending me to look at that conversation, but I haven't watched it. I've watched a bunch of conversation on this, and I don't really want to watch it.
Yeah,
A lot
I mean,
of
I have to, but like I said, it was just it was a good framing of like, and
Yeah.
but instead of receiving that, Jink like was like, oh, so if I didn't say this one thing in this one way, like he kind of like is like, you know, that's not what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then
So
maybe that's in the middle of a conversation, people get defensive. I
with
do it
your
too.
framing of this exchange, and assuming that's accurate, and I'm not seeing your life, but I'm just saying, assuming it's accurate, then I would agree with Mark Lamont Hill's conclusions there. That's important. That yes, you have to have a bit of concession. You have to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing. That we're vague there. Basically, you're just then everyone is thinking, well, this guy understands that his side is wrong and our side is right. You know, there is like not enough maybe confrontation, right, to work out our differences and then find, well, okay, well, here is our commonality. Instead, it's just like I concede that yeah, my team sucks. And also this big common enemy, like that can be anything you imagine it to be. Do you hate that? Yeah, we all hate the bad thing. Okay, we all hate the bad thing. But like, if I haven't said, like, you also hate the thing that like is a sacred cow to your community, right? Like, and yeah, so I hear what you're saying. I'm like rephrasing this all very
which to be
badly,
fair,
but
you didn't. I mean, you said at the beginning that like you have issues with what he's like, the way he's going about it, and maybe without putting in the words, maybe that is the thing that you like without thinking. Maybe that is the thing that you like have an issue with.
What I was thinking of, I mean, there's lots of things I have issues with like this era, right? What's happening right now? I have lots of issues. I put a lot of thought into it. What I was thinking of at the time, though, is like his combativeness with leftists. Because he's been talking about like the extreme left, and extreme left feels this way and that way. I feel like he'll watching again, since I've watched it all the time. Like this happens a lot when talking about crime, right? Jank has been wounded, and he is reacting. Like actually like a reactionary, honestly. he feels like reactionary on this issue of crime, and he'll talk about some sort of crime issue, some crime has happened, right? And then it'll shift to the issue of like crime reform, right? Like judicial reform there, or prosecutorial reform, I guess maybe. In any case, he'll say that, well, the left pushed for prosecutorial reform, right, to change how we do things for lighter sentences, and they all like their position is to just let all the criminals out, right? And sorry, that's not going to work. Sorry, the general public just not going to agree with that, right? And I was like, okay, well, your framing is dishonest. That's not exactly what people wanted, you know, right? That's not like an accurate account. And but this happens again and again, like some version of what I just described has happened like dozens of times. And I think it's really unfair. Like I remember them. They had a conversation. I mean, the one that you know, of course, with the Oyemi, Oyemi, whatever her name is, the
Ole.
Olemi, yeah. They had. I remember that conversation. That was an explosive conversation. I think they were a bit unfair to her. I remember watching that live. I thought they were unfair to her. That like she needed. I think there was. I think both sides were. I think Olemi did a bad job with.
I'm guessing she was talking about her abolitionism.
Yeah, abolition. Yeah.
That it's the
She
thing
did a
that
bad-
she is.
Go ahead.
Well, she spoke about it. Like I said, watching her this year has actually great. Like I've gained so much respect for her. Like I think she is a reasonable person. When it comes to abolition, I actually don't even think she's unreasonable when it comes to that. But it's such a concept. Like she says, she keeps it so extremely vague because she doesn't want to. And I guess it's true because she believes in it as a principle. She says that like the policy is going to work out. Where you're hundreds of years from it, you get you're going to get reforms and like things are going to try to through it. But I think it's difficult to have I feel like if you believe in something, advocate for it. But I don't think she should debate it if she doesn't want to talk specifics. Like, because I don't think I don't think it's a good enough debate answer to say, well, is what we're doing now works. Of course, well, by what metric? Like, it's not. Is this what we have now perfect? Absolutely not. But you can't argue for an alternative if you don't want to say anything specific about the alternative.
So I have like debated a prison abolitionist here, right, who was a friend of mine. And it's like a pretty easy win, right? Like among debates, like that dude, and this person was extremely intelligent, like a very intelligent individual. But like you can just like pin them down on this, and you can like win, right? Like if you have any like level of debate chops, right? You can, because this person otherwise like was a very good debater. The person I'm thinking of is an extremely good debater. But like this stance is a very difficult one to defend in our current era. But like I think what you said is better. And this is kind of like how that debate ended, is because they were like, well, I more or less agree with the principle. But it's not something that you can just really defend in the practical at this point in time. And I think, yes, I like the way you framed that. I think Olemi should not have come on and been a prison abolitionist advocate, because that's how she positioned herself there, if she wasn't ready to answer all the obvious questions, the obvious things, right?
Yeah,
that she faced.
I think that she said she thought of whenever she first, because she said she didn't agree with the first. Like you've asked, I'm sure she's asked herself these questions. So like, yeah, if you don't want to do that, then just like don't be that defender. Don't do that work.
And at the same time, I think that Cenk and Anna, I forget which one. Maybe it was both of them, or maybe just one of them at the time. I can't. But they did the interview together. That they were being a bit obtuse, right? That she was making some reasonable points in some part of the debate, and it was obtuse. I wish I could have like tagged in for Olemi. Like even if I'm not on your side, I could have like made some better points there, or just at the very least like tried to find some sort of bridges there, because I thought like there were some obvious like concessions and places of agreement they could have found there in that conversation, but like Cenk and Anna were being like obtuse here and pretending like they couldn't understand this, right? Like, oh, why don't you have a specific answer to all this? It's like, come on, let's calm down, let's bring the temperature down, right? And at the same time, I think Olemi, like there were some like obvious answers that she should have been prepared to discuss, and she just like didn't do a good job of that. So yes, I agree with you. She shouldn't have gone on in the first place. So that's fair. And I wanted to take this to like my discussion with Lauren Southern years ago, where what'd you say?
I'm pretty sure I watched that live.
Yeah. So I forget what the overall debate was was supposed to be. But the thing that I remember distinctly from this debate is that she wanted to like focus on my position, because she had known about it, of being pro open borders, right? Like I believe that borders are violence, right? That they are a violence like to enforce them, right? Because once you put up a wall, well, you got to make sure no one crosses that wall, as we see all the time, right?
Mhm.
That these things, and it's a violence specifically that's carried out against the proletariat, right? Like against the powerless,
Mhm.
where like labor can't move across borders, but capital can, right? And capital can use that to pit labor against each other, right? So I'm going to move this. So this manufacturing plant that was in Texas, I'm going to move it, 5 miles away into Mexico, right? Because the labor is cheaper there. And so, like the people who are labor who was fighting for better jobs or better working conditions here, right now, they're in opposition to labor on the other side, right, of that border when they weren't necessarily before. So, borders are, I think, especially our current formulation of borders, because we have a new in history formulation of what a state is, right?
Mhm.
I think these are very problematic in the way that we enforce these things. And so I'm for open borders. However, I understand that like an actual practical open borders policy is impossible at this point in history. It's just completely impossible and completely unworkable.
Mhm.
And that like the conditions for such a move would have to be like maybe centuries in the making, and would require a lot of specific reforms um, before something like that can happen, right? Like the changes into our economy and how we relate to other nations, and dismantling
Honestly, the way we
empire,
travel. I'm about to say
right?
we're just the world is more connected now than it's ever been, but there's still like places in the world that are very disconnected. Like
Yeah.
for Kazakhstan. I know that's a real place. I have no idea what they do there. I don't know anything about it, but I know it's a place that exists on the earth. But we'll probably eventually hit a point where, like, the same way that like car travel is now, like, oh, going 50 miles now is like,
Mm.
some people that's a work commute. It's a longer, but like some people are like, oh, okay, that's what I do in the day. That used to be like a lifetime away
Yeah.
for people. Like,
Well,
so I think
well,
as the world becomes more connected, like flight and different things become more affordable, and like it just becomes a more normal part of society.
well.
To move
My
around, the
point
world might
was
be
is
like,
that just to wrap it up
oh,
quickly.
sorry, yeah.
No worries, no worries. I was taking a while. Is that she wanted to argue on this. I think we were talking about like racism in general. I forget something about racism is what we were talking about. What the debate
Yeah.
was on.
It was yeah, it
Um,
was over. Oh, crap, what's that book she had read that time, and she kept talking about
oh
the
the
white fragility. No,
what?
not white fragility. White. It's the one about basically white people being taken over.
Oh, okay, yeah. Like she was. I remember she like we had an argument about like South Africa and like black violence in South Africa and like whether white people are under threat or something. I forget exactly what the thing was, but the point is that like
Mhm.
we had an agreed upon um uh debate, right? Like we had like a agreed upon thing, and she desperately wanted to like nail me on open borders because she's like, well, Prime is weak on this, right? Like, there's no way he's gonna answer. It's like a ridiculous question. So I'm like, hey, like this is something I agree with in principle, but I understand in practicality it can't be. So we're gonna move on, right? And then we're gonna talk about this thing, the thing that we're gonna talk about, and I'm not gonna let you scrum away. So the entire time I had to like keep her. Like once I had to shut that down, that took me forever just to like, get her to stop like focusing on open borders thing, and then like get to the argument at hand. And then she tried to wiggle out of it, but like I'm just too good for that. I'm not gonna let you run away from the clear ridiculousness of her argument. And like that was like the whole thing, right? Like we barely like it wasn't all that great of a debate because we barely got anything done. It was very blood sportsy, but like we barely got
Mhm.
anything done because most of the time she wanted to talk about a policy that I wasn't like advocating for at the moment. I'm just like, hey, yeah, I believe in the principle of this.
Great
Um,
replacement theory. That's what it was about.
was a great replacement theory that we were talking about?
Yeah, I'm
Fuck.
almost positive. Like I watched it. Yeah.
Okay. Shit.
And it may have like turned into a thing about like you're gonna end up at immigration when you
Yeah,
talk about
fair enough
immigration. Yeah.
then. And I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna like it's not something I'm defending right now because we can't implement this. I understand that. All your objections, I agree with them. Well, I agree with most of them. But like I think in principle, like this is the path we should go. And so I'm going to be pushing in this direction. I think I said something along the lines here. I'm going to be pushing in this direction for this policy, so that and someone else can take up the mantle after me, right? So we're pushing in this direction. Hopefully, someday in the far-flung future, we can have open borders. But yes, right now it's not going to work. So whatever, let's move past it. Relating that to just the crime thing, then I agree with what you were saying. At least Olemi's position there. If Olemi's position is the same thing with prison abolitionists, then I guess widely agree with her.
Yeah, it, like I said, it just makes for a difficult conversation.
Yeah.
As far as this is something like, because I'm probably pretty close to you on the concept of open borders as a principle, but I think there's a crappy internal feeling that I don't know how to deal with, and like the idea of like, does someone have the right to or do a group of people have a right to seek to maintain, even if I know they can't live it, but seek to maintain their values, principles, and lifestyles. Like on one hand, you would say no, but it would feel really crappy to say, because like if, even inside of a state, like let's say you're just like, this is a small town, and in this town everybody lives a certain way, they're lives to a slower lifestyle, and then like a bunch of people from the city figure out, oh wow, rent's cheap here, they move in and they turn it into the city just like where they're from, and all the people who've been living there like have to now lose out on their, like I said, their potentially their values, religion, lifestyles. Like, even if that's legal, it feels crappy. Or do you disagree?
Could you rephrase this? I'm like not following exactly.
Forget because one of the big things that when people talk about open borders, like the biggest thing is people deal with like safety and like knowing who's here and like
Okay.
dangerous things. That's fine, sure. We like that's to me that's the quote unquote easy part of it. Like you figure that out one day. The other, what I'm saying is the argument of like, oh well, the argument a lot of people make is related to like, well, what about culture and shared beliefs and religion and like lifestyle? Like, do people have? Is it wrong for people that seek to have a desire to maintain these things? Like, oh, if you're coming here, we want you. Like we're hoping that you're coming here because you want to take on our values and the way our lifestyle. Like it's the reason we want to be here. And if the answer is like no, I just want your money, but I want to bring over all of my values and lifestyle and things like that. Is that, I don't know, like is that okay? Like that feels kind of crappy for the people that already live somewhere if they end up eventually getting overthrown, or like.
Okay. One, I think this works in multiple ways. One, there's like, so we have a way of living, and we want to maintain that way of living. We like the way things are in our nation, our locality, and we would like other
And
people
picture it
to
on
perform,
somewhere
right?
different from America. America is like too much of a melting pot. Picture it in somewhere that's like, like it's not a melting pot. Like this is a country
Okay.
of generally a specific race of
Germany.
people with hundreds.
Germany,
Sure.
Yeah. Well, one, this works both ways in that, because the thought is that we're going to get a flood of individuals, right? Well, this works both ways in that people generally want to stay where they are, right? That they actually, most people like their own locality and they appreciate the values of their own culture, and they want to keep that. If they're moving, it's because they have to, not to sabotage wherever you are, right? But there are cases when there's a refugee crisis, where you have a flood of individuals, and I don't think it is an unreasonable argument to say that, hey, like, there's a certain level of values that like that are core that we can't budge on, right? And I think that's fair, but that's not how that's framed. It's just like there's a more vague sense of values in general, right? Well, the character of this place will change in some unorthodox way, and the fact that it is a change is bad, rather than what specific changes we're even talking about. So I disagree with that, right? Like, yes, like I would think that maybe the value of like valuing democracy here, well, do we value democracy? But let's just pretend that we do in America, that we all agree on this when we don't. But let's just pretend that we do, right? Like that is a core value, and that I wouldn't give up. And I would fight like newcomers if they were trying to sabotage that in some way, right? And maybe like some sort of vague egalitarian or ideals, or like whatever, right? Like there's a few core bliss, but outside of those things, there's a lot of room for movement. There's a lot of room for movement. And
Is it going to be based around the things that you give a F about versus what you don't give a F about? Because like the things people give a F about is going to vary from place to place. Like if let's say I move to some like non-democratic, like theocratic, like Muslim nation, me and my wife, and I say like, man, I think the hijab thing is stupid. Like women should, have freedom. And like that's how you're going around. You're like you don't buy into that. You wear, a bikini if you want to. Like in reality, I don't give a F about that. But am I disrespecting the place that I chose to move to, knowing the values they have, by like just having like a complete disregard for their lifestyles?
Yeah. I mean, if you aren't following the rules, there's a disrespect that's happening. Like, I think there's a calculation that we all have to make is whether that disrespect is warranted, right? Like, the trans people existing is a disrespect to, like, Christians and the way they view, like, the world, Is that warranted? And when you do that, right, there's going to be a response. Is it worth it to for that fight? It changes for each individual thing, right? Like you're moving to this territory, there's going to be some level of conflict. If you aren't already completely on board with whatever the values are to this new area, there's going to be a level of conflict. What are those calculations for each particular point of friction? And that has to be made. Like if there's no one size fits all. So in the case that you gave me, right? Like, hey, like we are all about the hijabs here. We don't like to see women's bodies. That's the way it's always been here.
That's oppressive.
Yeah, like, hey, but I've moved into this neighborhood, this locality, right? And that's just the way it is, right? Like I would say no. If I'm here, then I'm gonna have to get on board with that, right? And the women, if they want to stay with me, any women in my family want to stay with me, and I'm going to stay here, well, then they got to get on board with that too. Like it is what it is. Is it
Unless
like
that can bring enough of us?
It now, if it's like, hey, your daughter was raped, okay? Your daughter was raped, and to restore her honor, she needs to marry her rapist. Well, no, we got a problem there. I'm going to fight you on that. I'm going to fight you on this. Like, I get that you think that her honor has been besmirched and the only way to restore it is to marry her rapist, but I don't think that, and I won't do that to my daughter. And so, yeah, we're going to have an issue on that. An individual calculation for all of them, every single one of them. Right. And then, well, if you have a response, I'll wait for that.
I'm just going to give another example. If you have something like else on that thought, you can stay there.
Well, give me your other example because I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna that was one that was like, oh, okay, you're moving here, like this is we fight on that. I guess flipping it and be like, oh, okay, everyone lives here and women are treated equal. We respect trans people. We're in this like more utilitarian society, and then like people from a more conservative place move in, and they're like, but they move in like large swaths, maybe not to the whole country, but they move into your city, and to a point of where they're like maybe 35% of the population now. Like not the majority, but the significant portion. And they're like, some of these women need to get in the house. I'm not dealing with this trans crap, and we have a right to vote just like you guys do.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're just gonna keep bringing in people until we eventually get this figured out because
That's
y'all are wrong on that.
I mean, look, the honest truth is, yeah, at some point there's a raw political power, political power calculation, right? That the thing to do when the character of a neighborhood is changing, and however you want to describe that, right? Is to convince your neighbors, right, to engage these individuals and convince them of the correctness of your values. That's the way to do it. To do it peacefully, to have to open lines of dialogue, and to wonder in what ways we can coexist. And then maybe I can give on some things and you can give on other things, right? Where can we find some sort of easy medium? But if if at some point there's more people of this new group than the older group, then yeah, it does change. That's how immigration works. This is how immigration works. That's true, right? But that's been true in all of history, and in all of history, people have said I can't stand this, but I don't know, right? It depends on who's got power, right? It's just, I don't know, and I will always default until I have significant reasons to change my position. I will always default to being welcoming to individuals, to open our arms through there, and I think that's the best way, honestly, to make this happen, right? To open your arms to whoever is moving in, show them that you want them there, and that lowers their guard, right? They want to fit in. Most people want to fit into the communities that they're in. And if this continues on generationally, well, then the next generation that's going to be born there, they're going to be interwoven into that culture as well, right? They'll want to be a part of it. If you're telling them, right, if you're telling their parents, if you're telling the children, right, and the grandchildren that you guys are different and we don't like you, right? Then they will pardon in the position of well, I'm an outsider, and I'm going to fall back on my cultural roots that actually accepts me, the people who actually accept me, and so you'll always have this issue. So instead, invite them in. That's the way to do things. I'll always default to that.
Yeah, I don't think it's, and I mean, obviously this is about immigration, but I don't think this applies explicitly to immigration. Like I said, I think that's a lot of the issues in America of why Black people, even when they left the South, ended up congregating and forming Black communities, in certain cities and neighborhoods, is because of that rejection, and it has led us to locking into our own culture in a lot of ways.
Well, I mean, there's that and actual redlining and economics. But beyond that, right? Yeah, that's why Chinatowns exist, right? we were quite mean to the Chinese, and so they created their own neighborhoods and groups, and yeah, that makes sense. But beyond that, I wanted to respond to this idea of hey, these outsiders are trying to change the character of our nation or our locality, right? This happens with labor, but it doesn't happen with capital. Capital does the same thing. Capital gets to come into an area and impose its will, right? And its value system, whatever it is. And they can cross borders and they can do this, but the capital doesn't get the same level of scrutiny when their effects can be just as as grand and probably come on much quicker, right? Where they can undermine the value system of the of wherever they happen to be, right? For the pursuit of money and power. They'll undermine your politics, right? If that's the thing, you're afraid of the laws changing because of this new group, well, corporations will change the laws there to be more favorable to them. And they'll reorient the flow of resources to be beneficial to them. So, like, if we can bring the same energy when talking about corporations and their power, well, then I am a lot more willing to listen. But we never do, right? Like, that's very rare that happens. I mean, I look at how American imperialism has been able to change the characters of many countries through our culture of not mercantilism, but consumerism. Mercantilism. Consumerism, right? Yeah. Like that's changed the character of many places. Is that a good thing? Maybe.
I mean,
But
like I said, if you're taking someone who's like for 5 generations, the family has been like slaving in a mine and dying at 32, and you're saying that, hey, I actually have another job that pays double the mine work and is in air conditioning. Like, I was about to say, it becomes easier to convince
double
people
the
of
mine work.
capital.
Sorry, double the what work?
Double the pay of the mine work
Okay.
in air conditioning. It becomes easier to introduce yourself to the community because it's like, oh, I'm gonna give you money, and even if you don't do that, you're giving somebody, you can give somebody money to advocate in your interest, and they'll convince the people, like, there's someone trusted in the community, they'll convince the people of why you're good for the
No,
community.
what this looks like is instead the they'll come into we're just making up a locality, right? We're just pulling out a whole cloth, right? It's a locality that has been farming for generations, right? And they have a community, they have their values and whatever, right? But then a corporation will come in because there's some sort of valuable resource there, and they'll change the laws so that it'll make it untenable for the people who are on that land to occupy it anymore, and so they'll have to leave. And then, well, now you've been dispossessed of your land and your belongings, and now you need to find a way to survive. Oh, well, we have a way, right? That'll be the mines we're going to create, right? Where you're going to dig up this valuable resource, and you're going to suffer under there under brutal working conditions. That's what probably will happen. That's how that usually looks like.
I don't know. I feel like that's like leaning in. Like there absolutely has been cases that are still absolutely imperialism and still absolutely like the introduction of capital that have like it improved people's working conditions, have offered people like the type of wages.
I didn't say that wasn't the case.
I'm just saying that, like, if you frame it in like. If you frame it in like they're gonna create brutal conditions and they're gonna say we're gonna make you like it.
Yeah,
like,
but like the example I gave to you, it's an example that's happened many times, right? Especially across resource-rich areas like the African continent, right? The story that I've just given you is exactly the case that's happened all across that continent. So it depends on where capital is landing, what it's doing in that area. When it's talking about resource extraction, yeah, actually, that tends to be the most brutal part of the system. That actually tends to be the case, right? But if you're talking about manufacturing, well, they'll move those resources, right? So they'll take that resource from Africa, they'll send it to some other manufacturing hub in a more industrialized area, less resource rich, but more industrialized area. They'll turn that into a product there, right? That's where they'll raise the living standards of individuals, right? Because now you're creating a product, and that's where more of the profits lie. And then they'll export that product around the world, right? To get the people, and maybe if it's a useful product, like a cell phone, for instance, right? Well, then that'll also increase the lives, what was I forget the term you used, but like it'll make lives better across the world there as well, right? So yes, the same company, right, the exact same company, has different effects on different parts of the world depending on the chain of where, like the chain of the process of creating that product or service.
Yeah, but I think I don't know. Again, I guess I talked to you who has sometimes reasonable takes, and I guess I lay out a lot of the
I'm
issues
very
I have with
unreasonable
a lot of
sometimes,
people
that's
who
true.
have a lot of unreasonable takes. Like, and this isn't even a left thing. Right now, it's a conservative thing, or it's an anti-establishment thing. Let me not say it's a conservative thing. Like one of the strong anti-establishment takes is they truly believe like, oh, America's the problem. If we just pulled out of everywhere, if America just like went isolationist, the world would be better for it. Like if we just need to stop involving ourselves in these countries' businesses, we're keeping them down. And I think you would immediately agree, although America does have some massive issues around the world, that's an extreme, that's an oversimplification.
There was, yes, I absolutely do. In fact, I remember there was this discussion. I got to keep it vague for certain reasons, but there was a discussion around this, where this author was, I think he was an author, but he was on this program and he was talking about like how like American imperialism is bad in all the ways that I think it's bad, right? And talking about how we've overstayed our welcome with our military expansionism and have our bases everywhere, right? And was talking about like a future where America pulled back, right? Now I want those things. I want like a lot of our military bases to be dismantled. I want our ability to check our ability to project force, usually as a threat to poorer nations. I want all that. However, like I made a statement, right? Like to the people who were discussing this, I made a statement that like, sure, that's true, but not true everywhere. For instance, Taiwan wants protection, US protection, right? Uh it's not uniform, but a lot of people in South Korea would say we want US protection as a bulwark to North Korea. Right? So Taiwan versus China, South Korea versus North Korea and China technically as well. Like there are places that like welcome US protection, US military presences because there actually is a use for it. So I would say that to say that US should completely abandon the world is a policy that is unnuanced. I mean, it depends. It depends if you care. Maybe some people don't care. Right? You don't care what happens to those other countries, and you are just a simple isolationist. But if you're saying the world will be better, right? If your claim is the world will specifically be better, and by that be more just. Well, when China rose to Taiwan, it's not going to be much more just. It's going to be pretty bad, right? If North Korea like went to war with South Korea, and North Korea is nuclear armed, and they have South Korea lost, it ain't gonna be more just. There are lots of places where those examples, and there are moments in time where the U.S. has positive effects, right? We flex our muscles and we do things, at least I would say, line up to a more egalitarian values where we're pressing for these things. I think though,
what George Bush did for the AIDS crisis is like, in Africa, like George Bush is apparently like from a few like Nigerian and people I know, they like say that like, oh yeah, their families love George Bush. They may not be conservative, but they love George Bush.
Yeah, at the same time, because I have a vague idea of what you're referring to. I know I've heard discussions about this, right? But at the same time that was happening, where they were flexing their muscle and using economic power to help deal with the AIDS crisis, there was some good being done. But at the same time, there was also a push from that same administration to say, oh, also, any NGO working in these areas that's taking our money, you can't bring up reproductive options, right? Those you can't discuss options of people who come to your medical care, right? And things like abortion, yeah, that can't come through. No, we don't do that here. That was also a thing that happened. So like,
I don't know if that's about to say. I don't know if that, as someone who's super pro-choice, I don't know if that's even necessarily
Good.
a bad thing. Like
Sure.
it's a bad for the individual, but by and large, like I think Africa's population control is as the as the I guess the what is the word
The quality of
industrialization
so
and the quality of life
nationalism, quality of
yeah
life, yeah.
basically and continues to hit a certain point. I think like they say like it's true that just people eventually just have less kids. I think Africa overall is slowing down and
I'm not talking about this in terms of population control, right? Like I don't care about that. I care about the fact that, especially in certain localities in Africa, there's an epidemic of rape, right? Like,
mhm.
of women being taken advantage of and being forced to bear the child of the rapist. This is a very common thing.
It's
Um,
too early for
it,
this GSU. It's the second day of the year. Calm down.
what did sorry did is our friend GSU show up?
Mhm.
What is Bam lying about? A whole list of things of Bam. Never stops. Don't worry, I'm regulating him. But but yeah, but anyway, that I would say that these people deserve reproductive options because there's a whole list of issues. Yeah, not for population control. In fact, I would hate it if we were putting this out there
If
for
anything, like
population
if I
control.
thought you were saying that they were doing mass abortions, because if I was thinking about
Mass
anything,
abortions?
I thought you were saying that like oh they were trying to like bring down the population of Africa, but then you said the opposite. I was like, huh. I was like, well, I guess my immediately thought was like, oh, okay, well that's better than what I thought it was they were
Okay.
doing.
Yeah. No, they weren't like trying to sterilize all of Africa. I don't
Mhm.
know. I know they weren't doing that. But yeah, a Republican administration didn't want the federal money used for abortion, not just here, but to impose that in other places where it's actually quite critical to have like a whole list, not just abortion, of reproductive options, and these things were limited if you were going to take money, and so that's an issue. And this is what American Power does. American Power helps like backs tyrants. Right? It backs tyrants across the world, right?
And
Netanyahu
Jake will tell
is
you not to focus on that. Jake will say, "Stay with the good,
yeah.
the
Uh,
AIDS crisis.
yeah.
Come on,
So
take
I
yes
don't know.
for an answer."
I'm just saying that it's complicated. Sorry, that's a lot to say. It's complicated. I think America's role in the world is complex, and again, you don't want to reduce it to sloganeering to say that like American imperialism equal bad. Uh, in general, I agree with this that with that idea, but it's so much more complex. Our effect on the world, and like fuck, I mean, look at Afghanistan, right? Like Afghanistan is actually a really good example of this. Afghanistan, who was that was a victim of American imperialism multiple times, right? Where we were part of when we're global powers vying for control there, right? With the Russians, when the Russians were controlling Afghanistan, we were sabotaging them. We empowered the Mujahideen, I believe, right? And they took over, and then they became the Taliban. And the Taliban were our good friends until Al Qaeda operated from Afghanistan and attacked us, and then immediately hand over Al Qaeda. Okay, well then now we'll go into Afghanistan and pretend like we're there for freedom or whatever the fuck, right? And, well, first we were there for revenge, but once we were there, we own the country. Well, we're gonna extract from that country, right? We're gonna use it for resource extraction, for American corporations, and then later on, the long road to pacifying the population. It turns out it's a bloody mess, as as was predicted. And then our population gets bored and tired of the project, and so we decide to pull out. And then all of a sudden, the few good things we did do there, which was increasing the quality of life of women, was completely and utterly reversed, and actually might even be worse than it was before. So, yeah, American imperialism is complicated. It's really fucking complicated.
Yeah, I don't know what. I think however you feel about it, and the complexities of it, I think that in almost every case, at least that he's spoken about publicly, Donald Trump is going to like his form of isolation is going to be worse. I think in regards to the Ukraine,
This form of isolation will be worse.
yeah, his solution
Um,
to like American imperialism, like
um,
I think
uh, and
how
y- I mean, I guess, I mean, like, I would say that, like, I'm pro intervention in Ukraine, but not
we
for like the reasons the
surrendered
American.
Afghanistan.
Sorry, what?
We surrendered Afghanistan. I know it's become like, oh, why did Biden do that? Blah blah blah. But like, like it was in America's interest. Like, oh, we're not in an endless war anymore. But to the people like that were still in Afghanistan, it was devastating. Like it is.
Yeah, it was
It's like
devastating. Yeah, I agree.
we
I
surrendered. We
I agree.
basically just gave up.
Beyond, but like, look, and this is why you shouldn't go in these countries in the first place. This is why any intervention must be reasoned and deliberate and with like a limited purpose, because this was all foreseeable. Every single bit of that. All of it was foreseeable. It was foreseen. People were warning about it, but especially in the week of 9/11 and the immediate aftermath of that, opposition was completely suppressed, like both within our government and in the media and in society in general. You were a traitor if you were anti-war. You're like, well, maybe we shouldn't like run into Afghanistan. Maybe that's a bad idea, and especially into Iraq. Maybe this is an awful idea. Yeah, you were suppressed. You lost your livelihood. It was actually quite dangerous. We were scared to say otherwise during that point in time. And so we went through with it. And turns out the anti-war people were completely 100% correct, and the public was not prepared for and did not have the appetite for a long invasion. Actually accomplish the goal. Let's say we actually give a shit about the quality of life of women, right, and girls. We didn't actually really care, but like if we did care, the way to change that is for America to have been there for a century at least. We'd have to change the culture that deeply. So there was a generation of individuals who were there when invasion happened. Okay, right? That generation has to die. Right? The next generation, which is also going to be resistant to American rule, has to die, and then the third generation has to come up under American rule, where they can't literally remember a way otherwise. And then from there, we can talk about leaving.
I
That's
mean,
what
we
had to
typically
happen.
don't leave anywhere. I mean, we're still in Japan. This is World War
Yeah,
II.
but we're not flexing our strength in the same way. That's not an occupation.
Arguably, they're not even. They're legally not.
Not
They can't
occupation.
even. They're not. They can't have a military.
No, they have a military. They have a self-defense force. They absolutely do have a military. And I believe they've made a constitutional change so that now it's no longer self-defense force. Now they can do offensive force now. That's what the Shinzo Abe, the guy who got assassinated, I think that's what he did. That was a push there. So I'm pretty sure that went through. But in any case, even then, they still do have a military. They actually have a formidable military. That's a pain in China's ass. Absolutely. Yeah, so it's not an occupation. We don't occupy most areas. An occupation is something very specific. It's what we were doing in Afghanistan. It's what we're doing in Iraq. It's not what we're doing in Ukraine. It's not occupation, right? We're sending in our resources there.
We're not even there, really.
Yeah,
Just dropping off stuff.
in Syria, right? We have troops on the ground in Syria, but that's not an occupation, right? We're not running Syria far from, but we have military presence there. We're doing active operations in Syria, but it's not an occupation.
We occupy Hawaii. We occupy Guam.
I mean, yes, to Guam, Hawaii is a state. I mean, like there was an occupation before, but I don't think I'm not sure if that counts anymore. I mean, the Hawaiian population seems to be on board.
I think there's a pretty significant, like they still have their own like king. I'm pretty sure.
There is a royal family that they know like the lineage of that royal family. I forget because I read into this. And I don't want to say statements that are completely incorrect, but they know the lineage of like their former royal family. That much is there, and there are some people who like have some level of respect for that lineage. of the older royal family. But by and large, for the population, I think they're pretty much on board with the project. I think they're not on board with how Native Hawaiians are treated. And then Guam's an interesting situation as well, because I think Guam, my understanding, and I've read into it, but like my understanding, which could be wrong, is that the Guam population is very much on board with America. But God, the way that we treat them and ignore them is awful. It's awful. It's awful. I think they jump at the chance to become a state, but we don't even give them that opportunity. I don't think they got their chance. So that could be wrong with that.
I don't think there's any of. Like I said, I don't think that like if they took a vote tomorrow, Hawaii's current population, even just the like native population, would vote away their statehood. But I think that it wouldn't be like it would be more than 10% of the population. I think would vote for their own sovereignty. But outside of that, as far as the territories, I'm pretty sure most of them would jump at the chance of statehood because it's better than what they have now. Especially Puerto Rico. It's
also,
what are we?
What are the like for Guam, right? And in Puerto Rico, what are their prospects as an independent nation, right? Like they're too small to like seriously defend themselves from the great powers, right? If they actually got into a hot conflict with another island, another smaller nation, right? It would be devastating. Like there's economic benefits to be on an empire that you get to use, but we do treat them extremely unfairly. We treat them so unfairly. And like they're mainly used as bases. Puerto Rico, Guam, Hawaii, like their values to the United States is as a military outpost, and we treat them as such.
And we make them like it. The only other thing one of the things I think is like I actually don't know why we still do it. I'm sure it comes up like whenever someone becomes a president or becomes a politician and they figure out like, hey, why do we keep doing this? And someone gives them a reason and they say, okay. But like in 2025 now, I have to get used to saying that. I have no idea why we still blockade Cuba. Why do we give an F? What Cuba does?
Florida. That's it. Gave you the reason. Florida.
What? What? Explain. I don't get it.
Oh, sure. I thought that would be enough of an explanation. I'm sorry. Florida is where. So before then, the U.S. was backing again, talking about tyrants. U.S. was backing. I believe his name was Batista, a dictator in Cuba, right? Because it served our goals. And we wanted to make it either a state or just a territory. We wanted Cuba to be part of the United States. We wanted to be a territory. And Batista was our guy there, and he was fucking brutal. He was brutal and awful to the population, right? And so there was a revolution, a predictable attempt at the revolution that actually succeeded in the form of Castro revolution. But when he revolted, right, like he tossed out a lot of the population that either supported Batista or were just like capitalists that he didn't like. And he suppressed a lot of other people who probably didn't deserve it. So like not great things happened, but there was a massive outflow of individuals. Because
I understand that at the time.
Well, let me finish it, right?
Because it
matters.
You're right.
Yeah. So because Cash was very much our enemy because he kicked out our guy, right, our brutal dictator friend, we made an exception to our immigration rules, right, and we made the special exception for Cubans. They could come and settle in the United States, and so they did, and they mostly settled in Florida. It's the closest. And so now we have a large population of Cubans there who have a deep cultural hate of Castro, like a visceral hate. Some of these people are still alive from the Castro Revolution. Well, their parents were part of it, and they told them stories about Castro and how evil he is, and Castro was a bad guy. But like, and how awful this individual was to them, and so they have a deep cultural hate for him. But more to the point, they are a politically significant population because of their size, and influence on the state, and that state happens to be it used to be a swing state. I have thoughts about this later on, but like for most of this history, it was a swing state, and so presidential candidates oriented themselves in a way to be amenable to them, and it was easy, right? Because that also puts us in line with the general military industrial complex, being resentful for losing to Castro. So all powers, all incentives are in line for both sides, being Democrats, Republicans, to have this a general antipathy to Castro. There's very little incentive to change it. There's so not only so some of those incentives, especially for the Democrats, have faded, but there is also a something. It's basically like a governmental organizational inertia, right? It's a thing that we've always been doing, and so we'll just continue doing. It's either just to do that thing than actually change course. So yeah, that's it.
Wait, I missed the that's it part. Like I said, I understand all of that build up. I understand all of that build up. I understand the Florida being a swing state. I understand that. But
Okay.
like Castro died 2016, you would think like now's the time to
No.
have a conversation about like, oh, okay.
They
Like
did. They did. Obama did that.
yeah, but what I'm saying, like what why still? It just feels like
Obama lowered. Well, it's simple, right? So like it's exactly what I said. The incentives have started to wane for the Democratic Party. One, because Florida is becoming a red state. Like Republicans were always in favor of a hard line on Castro, and whoever took the toughest line on Castro was going to get those Cuban votes. Also, the Cubans that were kicked out tend to have been more conservative in the first place, right? Those are the ones who were expelled, and more capital, and they were more. They had capitalist aims as well, right? So those are the people who were tossed out. So they were becoming increasingly Republican. It's harder for Democrats to get that state, and in fact, I think it's no longer a swing state anymore. I think it's done, right? Which makes hope for the future. But anyway, for Obama, he recognized like the pointlessness of this, and so he made democratic overtures to Cuba. I think he was the one who reopened the embassy there. I think so. During that time, but in any case, he started conversations with the regime, especially after he died. Right? Castro
That's right.
died. When did Castro die?
2016.
Okay, so no, that wasn't after Castro. That was when he was still alive, I guess. Then, but he made. Oh no, but no, sorry. Castro had left power. He had stepped down because before he had died, he had stepped down. His brother had taken his place, and I think that's when they started like their serious talks. But then Donald Trump gets in office. All the incentives are still there for him, and so he reverses a lot of that. Biden comes in. Biden softens the stands a tiny bit, but there's not like any significant movement there because of that inertia, and it's not really a priority. And so that's where we are. Oh, and the last thing I'd say again, because Florida's not a swing state anymore, because I really don't think it is. There's hope for the future, because if it's no longer a political talking point, because Florida will always be for the foreseeable future be in a Republican column. Well, then Democrats. Well, then there will be in conversations about these things, right? It won't be a hot political issue to discuss. And since Cubans can't flex their power in a state that's purely red, well then and they won't vote for Democrats. So even if a Republican betrays them, they're not going to vote for a Democrat. They're a red culture. Well, then they already have your vote.
Okay.
So now,
you're saying you agree that you don't believe the incentives exist anymore. You're just saying give it a few more years, because that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think the incentives exist now.
I think they just disappeared. I think really with this election, I think they've just disappeared. If it's a red state now, like they're no like if it's solidly red, no reason to give a fuck what happens and what they care about in Florida.
I don't about to say about that. I don't think Florida's solidly red. I think Ron DeSantis is for better, like regardless how you feel about that, I think he's a fantastic governor. Um in being effective at governing the state, not any of his values. But
Yeah,
like
yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that if he steps down from a governorship, don't get me wrong, there's going to be a lean into another Republican most likely because they say like, hey, things have went so well under DeSantis, but that doesn't mean that next Republican is going to be as effective of a governor. And
He
if they're
doesn't have to
not,
be.
but I'm saying, I think if he's not, I think it becomes
No.
back to a free for all.
No, I don't think it is. And the reason why is because I've been paying attention to a lot of the immigration flows in Florida. Right, immigration happens everywhere between nations and between states. Um, there has been a big push for conservatives to come to Florida. But Ron DeSantis, like you said, very attractive governor, right? And very attractive specifically conservatives. Conservatives have in their mind that Florida is the anti-woke state. I mean, in fact, that's exactly what he said: anti-woke, anti-DEI, right? And it's been pushed that this is a very important thing that you should care about, right? And you should actually make your living decisions around these things. There's been a huge inflow of conservatives. Like, there's a bunch of articles talking about, like, even like real estate agents, right? Just talking to the people who are they're doing business with, and they talk about like how everyone that we're hearing from is like a conservative coming in and saying that like, oh yeah, I escaped from California or New York or Chicago, right? Like I can't stand the woke or the DEI, and I'm glad I'm here for freedom. And then at the same time, people selling their homes, right? Those are the people buying. People selling the homes are a lot of people who are like, yeah, this place is so conservative. They may not necessarily be blue, but they don't like the character, the massive shift in their neighborhood, their area, where at first they were fine with their neighbors, even if they had some level of disagreement, but now it's become hard conservative in neighborhood after neighborhood after neighborhood. There was an inflow of conservatives, right? There's an outflow of left-leaning or even center-leaning individuals. And so I think the next gubernatorial governor, right, that race, whatever that looks like, I don't think it matters. I think the Democrats are going to try, and the Democrats are going to fail miserably. They've been failing miserably. Their party is weak. Once another thing, the Florida Democratic Party, the apparatus is so weak. It's been atrophied. They've lost so many times for so many years, even before Ron DeSantis. So many times for so many years, it's atrophied. It's not in a position to win an election unless whoever is the Republican candidate completely and utterly bombs. Unless something like that
No,
happens,
I'm saying
No.
the Republican is going to win the next governorship. I'm saying,
will.
but I'm saying that that Republican that if that Republican is not good at being a governor, I'm saying that like that they can shift things. If he's a bad governor, people get anti whatever is currently going on.
Nothing less than a spectacular and extremely public failure, I think, would put a Democrat in office. And so you're not saying the next governor. You're saying the next governor might be able to be a Democrat if the next governor is a disaster, right? So
Not
that's a
even just
long
a
time
disaster,
horizon,
just
and
not
in that
good
time
as
horizon, the
DeSantis.
immigration trends will continue, and so it'll be more deeply red by the time that happens, and it'll be even more difficult for a Democratic.
Because it's not about this one thing. Like I think that it's not just red and blue. I don't like if you ask people about their political values, like I don't think that they're gonna line up traditionally conservative or Republican. I don't think that's what matters anymore.
Yeah, okay, so
So I'm saying that like voting for a Democrat is like, oh, like how could you vote for this person and now you're voting for a Democrat? I'm thinking it's not gonna take as much to jump ship anymore. Because it's not about any of the values.
I disagree.
It's not like, oh, I just want, fiscal policy. Like that's not about policy.
There's a certain level of individuals. There's a certain group of people who are in that camp that you're describing, but there are plenty of partisans, and those partisans are leaving. Yes, actually, the people, that group of partisans is the ones specifically that are leaving. Florida. Those are the group that are leaving. The other ones, the one that are the more malleable you're talking about, well,
I'm not talking
they can be
about.
more malleable for the Republicans as well.
I don't think they're
Um,
malleable. I'm saying I think that they're just populist heavy, and I think a populist Democrat, can win them over too.
why do you think they're populist heavy in Florida?
Because I think Ron DeSantis ran as a populist.
Did he?
Yeah, over Andrew Bynum. Yeah, I think.
Do
Ron
you mean the
DeSantis
crackhead?
well, first of all, he ran a fantastic campaign until that crap came out at the end.
Yeah, but
was-
he was a
They
crackhead
did
in the
come
end.
out.
It was bad.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that was afterwards. Yeah, I know they didn't come up till afterwards, but like,
Mhm.
yeah, like sort of the Democratic Party should have dodged a bullet there. That was pretty bad.
True, very true.
In case you don't know, yeah, the last Democratic challenger to Ron DeSantis, it was a black guy, unfortunately. And later on at the campaign, it came out that he lost, that he was addicted to crack. And I think there's some videos of him. Wasn't there videos of him? I'm not sure about this.
I
There's a
didn't
lot.
see the videos.
I think
But I
there might have been
remember
videos of him
stories.
in like a bad state. It was like not good, really bad. But yeah. So I'm saying that like it doesn't matter, even if there's some sort of populist streak here. Like, and it doesn't matter if the candidate had. None of that matters. None of this matters, right? There's the just like in Georgia, how Georgia has become more blue because blue-leaning voters moved in, right? And now Georgia, I think it's fair to say, is becoming a purple state, right? Florida was a purple state that was leaning red, but there's an outflow of blue voters and an inflow of flux of red voters. Just like you were talking about previously, on immigration, the character is changing, and it's changing to be solidly red.
It's possible, and I guess we'll just see. Like, if I think Florida's a hard state to buy that on. I think if you told me that with Ohio, I'd take that bite 100%. Because Ohio was, Ohio's the
Ohio might be solidly red now. Yeah,
purple. Yeah, I think
but
Ohio's
I'm not sure
solidly
about the immigrant. I'm not sure exactly why that's the case. I actually don't know. In terms of is it an immigration thing, or simply is it just a flows of individuals? I don't know. But yeah, it is more solidly red.
Yeah, I would say that's solidly red. Like I said, Florida. I mean, like I said, you could be right, but in my head, I just feel like I don't know. I think there's enough. I think there's a mix of like younger people trying to like, oh yeah, Florida's kind of neat. Whatever, go live in the beach, bro. But who knows?
I mean, yeah, that's then, and you know where they go? They go to Miami-Dade County, right? The only blue in that state. And as long as you stay in Miami-Dade County, then you're fine, right? But there were the Miami-Dade County has shown already an ability to be able to float the rest of the state, right? And the rest of the state is becoming more and more red. Miami-Dade County can't do it on its own anymore. Done.
I mean, Georgia's been floated by Atlanta alone.
If I were to go to Florida, I would move to Miami. Why? Because oh my God, the women. Holy shit, no. Fuck that. Fuck them. What? I don't care. No, for the women. For women. Women of all different races there. Holy shit. Yeah, the only reason Prime would ever be in Miami. Let's make this clear, right? Promise. It's for the women. I would hate to be in Florida because of the fucking humidity. I don't even want to be there in the winter, right? To enjoy the women. That's only it, right? Beyond that, no. I actually went to Florida a little while ago. I think I told you guys this, right? Like I went to Florida for a bit. I had to help a friend down there, and it was during the summer. It was fucking awful. I felt like I was swimming every time I went outside. The humidity was so fucking high. Fuck, I hate high humidity, no matter where it is. I went to South Korea, to Seoul, South Korea, in the summer, and it was I was swimming because I happened to come at a year where it was record humidity during that particular summer. Awful. I went to Barcelona and during the summer, the awful humidity, awful, god awful humidity. I'll never do it again. But for the future, I was telling you before, I hope to be traveling at some point in the future, right? But whenever I travel again, I am going to base my travels around humidity. I will
Is that serious?
I will go to places if they're like in a if they're prone to humidity in the summer, I will go to them in the winter. And the opposite, right? Yeah, I'll just like I hate it so much. Like I'm sweating. The moment I go out, I'm pouring sweat. Bam, bam, pouring sweat. I'm out there for 5 minutes, and my body just immediately like expels all the moisture in it. I am pouring sweat down my back, and I look like I'm dying until I can get to the next air conditioned spot. It's awful.
Maybe it's, I'm about to say maybe it's just because I sweat regardless that like maybe I just don't think about it. The only thing I was my only requirement was and when traveling was like, oh, okay, if we're gonna do it, make sure the place we're going to like find us a building, find us a room that has air conditioning because a lot of countries apparently don't have air conditioning.
Yeah, some
It's just
places
not a thing.
don't have AC, and that's awful. It's awful.
Yeah, I was like, I'll go, but like, cause she's like, oh, look at this great deal, and I was like, ask if they have AC. She's like, why wouldn't they? I was like, ask. And she asked,
Ask.
like,
Yeah.
they don't have AC. And it's like, I know they don't. It's not gonna work.
Pay for it. It's worth it to pay for it. Oh my god, it'd be awful. You sweating, pouring sweat while you're there. You want to come to your room, right, and have sexy fun times with your girlfriend, but just the oppressive humidity inside the room. It just no, it's too much. It's too much. No, you want to crispy cool inside.
100%, absolutely. Oh man,
Oh, hold on. But on that note, again, like, so you guys, if you weren't here before, Bam is traveling. He doesn't want to travel. But like, again, because I don't think we finished this. Why can't your girlfriend just travel alone? I mean, so like, you did accommodate her, right? She wanted to travel. She went to, I forget where you said you guys went, right? You went to a place, right? So you accommodated her. She knows the thing you wanted to do. I'm sure you've expressed this to her, right? But for her sake, you did the thing. Now she wants to go somewhere else. You don't want to go, right? Now, isn't it up to her to accommodate you? Like, okay, I'm going to go celebrate with my friend alone.
One, it's her birthday. Number two, it's number two, like I said, she's talked about the concept of doing solo trips. She's never taken one. I told her she should take one domestically, like before she goes international, just to feel it out. But yeah, so that's number two. She has never taken a international solo trip. Number three is it's not that I don't enjoy myself when I go. It's not that I like because I'm never gonna be like a bah humbug person like while I'm here. If I'm gonna be here, I'm gonna like, oh, okay, that's cool. I experienced this thing, I did this thing. But it's just like if you weigh it against like, oh, is your life more fulfilled now? Aren't you glad you did this? I'm like, sure, it was fun, but I also could have kept the money in my pocket and been home, and that would have been fine too. So that's where it is with me. It's not that I don't like traveling. It's not that I hate traveling. And I think those are two different things.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You just don't think the value proposition necessarily
Yeah.
is worth it. That it would entice you enough to do it yourself on your own accord. I hear you.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's it. So when it becomes if I'm like at this like pretty neutral point and she's at this like very pro point, then I can end up doing it. And I'm like,
Okay.
okay, we
Okay.
plan this trip, sure I'll do it. But like I wouldn't do this on my own. Like and I'm not gonna be the crazy enthusiastic person about it. But I'm not gonna be a fun sucker. I refuse to be a fun sucker.
Okay. All right. You suck other things. Understood.
Kidding.
Damn right. But okay, fair enough. If you don't despise traveling, then I would say, well, one, the birthday thing is a
Mhm.
rough one. Then sure, all right, it's a birthday. Fine, all right. But then if that's the case, in my book, I'm like, okay, I've accommodated you twice. You're gonna accommodate me once by like doing this on your own, right? Secondly, doing it on her own, she doesn't just have to be domestically. Domestically is a fine trip. Like, let's say she wants to go to Chicago or some shit like that on her own. Yeah, fine.
I know she can, but I'm just
but-
saying this a me thing. I would want to see her making the first attempt, like in the United States before.
I hear you. I hear you. I'm
Yeah.
saying, I'm saying she can expand her range here, right?
Mhm.
Go to any Anglo-speaking nation, right? You can try to England, right? If she's like particularly a bit more adventurous, or our 51st state, Canada, right? You can do that as well. And
Yeah, I think
like
Canada
as a
would be
person
fine.
who's traveled alone, I was at first apprehensive about traveling alone because like, oh no, won't I need someone? But like, I realized, oh yeah, I'm an adult. I can just do this myself. It was literally the epiphany I had. I could just do it myself. I did it myself, and it was fine. And as a person who's traveled, I've met other people who travel alone. I've met women who travel alone. They're like, yeah, I love it. Some of them have bad experiences, but they're like, still, I travel alone all the time. I love it. It's a mixed bag there with women, but you can do it.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I wouldn't be against her doing it. Like I said, I would just want to feel it out. Like I said, even Canada, like you said, would be fine. Like, oh, okay. But like her other thing is like, and she just said this, and then I've seen a little bit of it on her last trip. She's like, oh yeah, I want to go to the little bitty like side of the road.
Oh, okay.
You know,
She doesn't want to
stand.
just go to the big city. She wants to like get the culture in the country.
Yeah, and she's like, I'm talking about like we're like riding in this little taxi thing, and she sees like a fruit stand on the side of the road. She's like, stop the car, and like she gets out, just walks over, and I'm like, they could just like snatch you, they could just taking you right there. Like there would be nothing. You
Okay.
would just be gone. There would be nothing. But she just like thinks it's fun. She's like, yeah, this is what travel's about. I
No,
got.
she's fine. She's fine, right? Oh god, now you're too much for me. No, she's fine, right? In most places, yeah, you're fine. Like no worries about it. And I would suggest that she stay in hostels because then she can meet people in hostels and they can be her travel buddies. If is she a personable person, like she needs to get along.
Sure.
Okay, well then she'd do fine in hostels. She'd make friends very easily, and then she'd have a group, but she wouldn't be alone for these moments. I love it. I'd love to talk to her about it. If she was ever curious about like traveling alone, if she ever wanted advice, I'd talk to her.
Might set that up.
Um,
Because she swears I don't have friends. I'm like, I do have friends. A lot of them are online. But they exist. They're real people.
but yeah. So yeah, we've been talking about 2025 predictions. Do you have anything else you want to say?
2025 predictions. Yeah, I think that something I hope I'm wrong about, and it may not be 2025, it could be 2026. I think that COVID was going to suck, like it ended up being a global pandemic, but I don't think that Trump is completely immune from a second pandemic. Especially now with like the anti-vax stuff getting like stronger than ever, and people's like hostility against lockdowns. Like it could be 2025, 2026, somewhere in there. I could super see, like I think I read something or seen, not, I didn't read anything. Well, I don't know. I talked that a lot. I'm pretty sure I seen like a video or a clip or a news thing related to something of like bird flu or like measles coming back or something. Something would happen.
No.
And like Trump, like the Republican Party is just so against like like they're not going back into lockdown mode. I could see another pandemic like
yeah, so that's exactly so you're touching on something. Bird flu looks like it's becoming more of an issue. There are cases of it jumping from birds to people. We have cases of this happening, and we're trying to control it, trying to contain it. And so far I think we've been pretty successful, but like we have to kill like a lot of birds have have died in an effort to eradicate this thing. But it seems like our control is slipping. Like if we're looking for a next big outbreak, it would be this. In terms of measles, that's been a decades-long process as like their anti-vaccine pushes has been happening long before COVID. That more people have been like getting measles. Kids have been getting measles. Especially the Orthodox Jewish community is like a favorite spot for measles. and any other awful disease, honestly. But anyway, if there was to be something, it would probably at this point in time be bird flu, and if that happened under Trump, yeah, I don't know what we would take, what actions we would actually take to do this, to stop it. I think that no, hard. I think there's a better way to do a lockdown than what we did. I think that we had to, um, as always, we had to meet people's economic and material needs. We didn't do that. We sent people home, and they didn't have the support that they needed. Businesses didn't have the support they needed, and they ended up closing their doors. Other countries handled this differently. They like paid businesses, right? They paid them enough to float them and use that as a vector to pay employees, right? So you were still attached to your place of work. You were still getting paychecks to your place of work. And so you're still
we did
employed.
that too.
Huh?
We did that too. What do you think PPP was?
We didn't do
Okay.
exactly that.
The United States gave out tons in aid. Like
No, we get
sometimes
aid,
people
but
only
not in this, not this way. Like we gave our aid, we gave money out. There's some money out, but like
we also gave
we
out
didn't float
PPP.
businesses. We didn't float businesses that needed economic support. A lot of businesses closed, where we could have floated them, even if it's some sort of like loan, maybe like a 0% interest loan that we would forgive, if you kept your business up and running after after lockdowns ended. We didn't do any stuff like that.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to control. I need you to explain what you think PPP was, if you don't think that's what it was.
No, there were people. No, so there were some PPP loans. Okay, yeah. So you're talking about the PPP loans.
Like I'm about to say, that was literally to float employees, so businesses didn't have to do payroll, so they could like keep people on payroll even amidst the shutdown. It sounds like exactly. Now part of it got taken up by larger businesses, which arguably it should, in some cases, although you could also make the argument some of those larger businesses could float themselves, and some of it got abused by like individuals going in and making fake loans that they're getting arrested for and things going on later. But the United States did try to do business aid. I think they did a lot of business aid.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. There was more. I think it's fair. But in any case, other countries had a better outcome with their lockdowns. And however, if we were to do it again, if people were faced with the same. Oh yeah, that's another problem. Yeah, because I'm like why did I have a problem with PPP loans? Yeah, lots of businesses didn't get it. Yeah, now I remember. Yeah, there were many problems with the PPP loans.
I think we gave out nearly $1 trillion.
Yeah, but they didn't. But like the disbursement of this was like really bad. I'm like, yeah, like why did this? Like, because once you brought it up, I'm like, oh fuck, yeah, that was true. Like, why didn't that work out? A lot of that money didn't get to where it needed to be. Like the way we decided to disperse that was like through the banks. And banks like gave that money out to their existing customers. And I remember there was the moment where like there was the night where like those loans became available, and there was like a bum rush for like business to apply to these things, and a lot of businesses were denied, right? But they didn't stand a chance because like the banks like favored their clients, that their big clients that were already pre-established for those loans, for that money, right? There was such an uneven disbursement of those loans that a lot of the businesses that needed it didn't get it, and then a lot of businesses that didn't need it, right? There's a lot of fraud that's happening that's being accounted for right now. Yeah, that was actually really poorly executed. Yeah, you're right. You are right. There was some sort of effort, true, but the disbursement was awful. It was awful.
Well, I think the fraud thing is the thing that like I don't. It's hard to blame the government for. I mean, you could say like ask for more, but like I think sometimes people would love to make the argument like if it was like a crazy threshold to get approved for it, I think they would make the opposite argument. Like, why are you making it so hard for people who are just trying to survive and support their businesses? And as far as like I said, I do remember there being like leans toward larger businesses, which isn't good for the business sector as a whole, but like I said, is arguably good for the country as a whole, because largest businesses are the largest employers, like the primary employers.
They're the largest employers, but I think maybe I'm wrong. I'm almost certain that most people are employed through smaller businesses. Um,
Let's see what the percentage is.
I don't want to make a hard statement on this. But I'm pretty sure that's the case. Let's see.
Let's see. It's pretty close. This looks like 45%. Or this is about 59 million people, and then so I think a larger portion is under large businesses, but it's it's about as
Sorry,
close
what
to
the
50-50.
numbers?
Yeah, it looks like 45%, 45.9% of Americans work for small businesses.
Yeah.
And
Hold on.
that's 500 or fewer. Actually, I don't like that definition.
This doesn't make sense. These numbers don't make sense. Because like it doesn't account for like the government. I want like a full accounting, right? So within private hands, there's like government's the largest employer, right? That takes a piece of the pie. And then like of the remaining, there's large businesses.
I'm about to say I thought the legal definition of large businesses was like over 25 employees. This is using 500 employees.
It's 500. Yeah, I mean, it's like way bigger than that. Yeah. Like TYT is like a medium-sized business. I think I'm pretty sure it's an officially a medium-sized business. Like Juby, he runs a medium-sized business. But he has a lot more than 25, but less than 500.
27% of businesses have between 5 and 19 employees. Let's see.
Yeah, like
just 1% have over 100. Yeah, I don't like 500 as a number for
that's the definition though.
I don't know if that's the definition.
I'm pretty sure it is. It's around there. Hold on. Definition of a large is large businesses, roles, classifications. Blah blah blah. Classify employee head count. The head count of employees widely. Okay, so the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, for instance, classifies large businesses having more than 250, but that's not the U.S. How does the U.S. classify that?
Is a business that holds employees upward of 100. I could accept that with assets over 25 million.
How does it? But we're concerned about the U.S. tax code because that's what we're talking about, right? I don't know.
Does the U.S. tax code make a legal statement on this?
Yes, actually, yes, 100%. There's lots of advantages that like you get for being a small business, right? And some businesses will try to fudge that they're still a small business or medium-sized business by like hiring contractors rather than full-time employees that would count to the head count, right? So yeah, there's big money involved in whatever you count or not. Okay, when evaluating the size of business, the federal government takes into account the average annual receipts of the average number of employees. Generally, large businesses are those in most mining and manufacturing industries that employ 500 or more individuals, or those that do not manufacture goods and have an average of 7 million in annual receipts. There are exceptions in these standards in some industries. So it depends on industry to industry. So it's not like a solid thing. They also take into account revenue. So yeah, and then there's medium-sized businesses. There are definitions within the tax code for these things.
I'm forget what were we even saying about that. Oh, we were talking about PPP.
Well, yeah, we were asking how many people are within those different categories. I'm pretty sure most, like, there's a great number of Americans employed by smaller businesses, but I could be wrong about this. I don't remember. Maybe that's changed since the last time I heard. I don't know.
But
especially since a lot of businesses have a lot of small businesses have closed down during the pandemic, right? So it might be the case there's more consolidation. Most people have ended up in large businesses now, but I don't know.
That's possible. I was about to say, all in all, like, I won't disagree with you that like there could have been the distribution could have been better. Like just because of even just because of the fraud alone says that they could have been done better. I think the question becomes how would you have wanted to solve that? Because aren't you typically, and I know, aren't you typically against the bureaucracy? Not bureaucracy. What is it when we talk about you talk about all the time, like the middlemen having to like account for things, or I think you do this with administrative.
Administrative
There's a
state.
word. Maybe, yeah.
I'm fine with administrative state.
Mm, I don't know. There's something you talk about all the time that like, oh God, like this would be so much cheaper if we didn't have to deal with so many something that does like the distribution and calculations. You do it with college. You talk about it with healthcare.
When I talk about nationalizing things, like maybe like when I'm saying that like private industry, like so like in terms of like pharmaceuticals, hey, if we nationalize a few of these companies, or like either we like bought them out whole, or we created our own like publicly owned drug creation and distribution networks, it'd be a whole lot cheaper because then there wouldn't be a profit motive on top of it. Is that what you're talking about?
No,
That's
you
expanding
always,
government.
yeah, no, yeah. You always you talk about something of like, oh, why something shouldn't be, why you don't like means testing. That's where it
Means
comes up.
testing, yeah.
If you say you don't like means testing because you have to pay extra money, like it's when it could just be universal, we're having to pay all these extra money for the
Oh.
people to do the administration of the means.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, mostly I haven't really considered mean testing in terms of businesses.
Yeah, no, it's not in terms of businesses, but I'm
Yeah.
just I just think of that concept. I don't know what that thing you're dealing with is, but I'm saying
Yeah.
that like if for the distribution, you're gonna need whoever those middle people are that you know have issue with to do that. I guess quote unquote means testing.
Yeah, so there's gonna be a bureaucratic state, whether it's being publicly a bureaucratic layer, whether that's done through the public sector or the private sector, that's going to have to distribute these funds. I would not have it through the private sector because, just like we saw last time, the private sector, like the banks preferred their own customers, right? Like, oh, you all have to go. I think it was only through the large banks that this was done. I don't remember. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure that distribution happened through like the largest banks, like Bank of America and J.P. Morgan Chase, right? And that they end up favor when it came to disbursement among their existing customers, because why wouldn't they, right? They get an advantage if their existing customers get money, and then they can use that money to give it back to J.P. Morgan Chase, right? Like, why should I give it to someone else who's not an existing customer, where they're going to put that money in another bank, right? Like that seems to be a really bad idea. Instead, I would do it through public means, but even then, still, there's going to be a bureaucratic layer there for the role of disbursement. And yes, I think you'd still run into issues of some sort of means testing, because you have to apply, you have to say that like, hey, I'm a
I
business
need
in
this
need.
much.
Yeah,
like-
this much, and maybe you have to provide documents. Maybe not everyone could provide those documents, and so yes, like as soon as you mean test it, you'd have to. You tell me like this one you really can't get around. I don't know how you could, or you would say like, well, this money is for everyone, but it's not for everyone because you have some requirements, and those are reasonable requirements, right? It
Okay.
was. Who was it? I've read an article about this. Did you share this with me? I don't know who it was. I found an article about this. It was rappers, like some rappers but getting in trouble. It was Lil Wayne. I think Lil Wayne was one of them. Who was like, they applied for PPP loans, and like most of that like went into like luxury travel. And there was others too, not just him. And he's like in trouble now because of this. It was all bullshit. He didn't use it to like retain staff or anything like that. But you gotta means test these things, and if you didn't do that, well, then you can't like you can't put consequences on people like Lil Wayne who abuse those funds.
I think you can.
Well,
Like
there's if there's no
like
means,
means testing is preventing them from getting it, but like you have requirements. Like if like even if you don't have like even if I don't have police at the door, like you still can't like I don't have security at the door. It still doesn't mean you can't come in and rob me. And then say like, well, if you didn't want to be robbed, you shouldn't have security. Like, yeah, I didn't put up security, but like there's a good faith effort involved. And if you rob me,
are we being sorry? Are we being maybe we're just being loosey goosey with the term means testing here? So requirements, and saying that you have to meet these requirements seems to be means testing. That would be it right there.
Well, what I'm saying is like they did means test, as in they had requirements for PPP loans, but people like lying on documents or like saying what they want to, and you're saying that like they didn't do a thorough vetting process to like prove that they met these requirements.
No. That's not what I mean by means testing. Whether it's a thorough vetting process, but like I'm saying, like we means test like other government programs, and like in terms of like getting college loans, right? Or access to like WIC, like WIC, like women and infants, or whatever. Like we means test those. We ask people to provide documents, and whether it's thoroughly checked or not doesn't mean that like that's what I'm talking about. Like the effort behind it isn't what I'm referring to. It's the fact that
what I'm saying when you talk about like, oh, you can't get mad at Lil Wayne in them, I'm like, well, PPP loans did have requirements. It was supposed to be meant to use retained staff.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They needed requirements.
Payroll. Yeah. But they did.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Oh, I thought you. You were speaking if they didn't. I thought you were saying like in this world they can't be upset with.
Oh,
yeah. I was like, even if they didn't thoroughly check it, like he understood like what the purpose of it was.
Yeah.
Whenever he applied for it. So I'm like, that's what I meant when I was saying like, like I like, oh, you should have locked the door if you didn't want to get robbed. Like, I could have locked the door, but you still shouldn't rob me. Like I have. There's a reasonable expectation.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. We're on the same page.
Okay. But how did you? I mean, I guess the question would be: it's hard looking at how other countries do things. One, because the United States is basically like a conglomerate of countries. We're a massive just in space and in population. But how it is cool is good is in hindsight you can say like, oh wow, we didn't do good on disbursement, but like the United States in a number of ways gave away tons of aid and regarding
I don't think it was enough, and I don't think it was to all the people who needed it.
Arguably the even though it was to the benefit of the country, arguably I don't know. I believe this to be true, but you're going to argue something else. But arguably, the reason why Kamala and Biden lost the presidency was because of the amount of aid we gave. Because the response to aid is going to be some it's a pandemic, but a response to that is going to be some level of inflation. Like it has to, but because if so,
weren't you the one who was arguing that inflation was not nearly as bad as people thought it was, and that it was more vibes than anything else?
Yes, it is vibes. But I'm saying that
so then it's framing vibes. So it's not the loans or whatever aid that was dispersed. It was the framing of like the results of that Democrats didn't bother to control.
Yeah. I guess like if you gave more, they would have just arguably led more into the framing.
I don't think it would have mattered whether I'll say it matters depending on some sort of threshold. If there was a threshold where people felt that their material needs were met, right? And you didn't have there's so many stories of individuals who are resentful of the Democrats. And they basically the Democrats, even though this also happened under Trump, right? But they specifically remember the Democrats, and like their businesses where they put like all their efforts, and all their their hopes and dreams, right? Like they launched it all at the ground, and then it crashed and burned under Biden's administration. And they're resentful because they didn't get the support they needed, or they're trying to keep it afloat, and they lost everything trying to do that themselves. So those individuals, right, they're pushed to the conservative, right? That framework means something to them when they say, "Oh, it's inflation, and it's because of Biden's handling of the whole pandemic." That resonates with them, even if like exactly what the Republicans are saying might be a lie. So like it has to be the response has to be competent. It has to be competent. It has to be done in a way that actually meets the needs of individuals and be enough to do so. If it's not enough, right? So let's say you only give out one $1,000 check, right? During that time, people need a lot more to live, right?
But
So
Trump gets credit for that $1,000 check.
yeah, because he put his fucking name on it. He puts his name on it.
But I'm
Like-
saying, so I'm saying, like, that's what I'm saying is like meeting, like even what you're saying about meeting people's need. I don't even think that's important. I think it's all vibes.
And
'Cause they,
no, but yeah, sure. Okay, fair enough. That's fair, right? But you have to meet their needs, and they have to understand that their needs were met by you, right? That's another anchor. That's important, though, right? Where if it's simply done through maybe some intelligent, bureaucratic, right, process that does meet their needs, but they don't understand that you did it, well, then that process will be ripe for reframing by the other side, especially by Republicans who have no problem being dishonest.
that's
right?
exactly what happened. I'm about to say an example of
Yeah.
that is with the hurricanes in Florida, Tennessee, and North Carolina. Like I dealt
Yeah.
with just because I work in insurance, I dealt with people who like received like 60, 70, 100 like $1,000 in FEMA money.
Mhm.
And they say that, and they said came in, and because it's MAGA Trump, Biden didn't want to give us but $750, but I fought for mine, and I'm like, you got it because it was like you just filled out the paperwork that was always there for you to get the money. Because even the Republican like the governors had to
Yeah.
admit, like, oh yeah, Biden fulfilled all our needs, but it didn't matter. Biden didn't want, like, Biden only gave $750, and FEMA
Yeah.
took everything from them, even if they, no matter how much money they got. So that's what the only reason I was
I
saying
had
meeting their needs didn't matter to them.
Yeah, you have to do it in a way that they understand that it was you and not being able to take over. I think that's an important part. I actually talked to someone, I'll leave their name out of it, who had similar thoughts, talking about how like the failure of the Biden administration, and you know how much I hate Biden, right? Like, I've made it clear to you how much I hate Biden, but I had to like end up defending the Biden administration. Like, wait, no, that's not how that happened, right? Like, they misunderstood like FEMA, right? And like they're like, well, FEMA like isn't here rebuilding the state, right? That they were in, because they were in one of the states were affected. I'm like, I don't think that's FEMA's job. Like FEMA is like for the immediate response. My understanding, if FEMA is for the immediate response, right? Handling emergencies, like getting to people who might be in trouble, right? And then the immediate post response, where like disbursements of aid, right? So people can help rebuild. But FEMA doesn't have the budget and has never had the budget. I was literally looking into the budget of FEMA, right, to prove this point. FEMA has never had the budget to put in the billions it takes to rebuild literally the buildings and stuff of the state on its own, right? Like that infrastructure, all that's someone else's department, right? That's
Well,
maybe the state.
I'm about to say private. It's a combination of their private insurance and FEMA. Like FEMA handles, like FEMA covers flood. They cover the flood from the ground. Ground out, which is different from a rain flood. I don't understand that, but that's a difference in insurance. FEMA legally covers that, and they cover it up to a certain amount, and then they come and have legal arguments, and they fight with private insurance about covering, like, basically, all right, I pitched in 80 grand, you pick up now with this person's private homeowner's insurance, and we're supposed to like cover the rest. Now, of course, because they're private big business, they're like, no, I don't think that's our responsibility, blah blah blah. But actually, I think I work for a company that typically does a better job than most at actually paying out.
He doesn't want to
But-
be morally implicated. I get it. Yeah, go ahead.
But no, what you're saying is true. There is like a big misunderstanding of what FEMA actually does. But I think for some people it's not just the understanding. There's we have to do something. I don't know what we're gonna do because it's probably always been this way to some degree, but we have to do something about the team sports element of politics. Um, because like I said, I think that there's people who are supporters of Trump who actually I don't think I know because I've had conversations with them who like couldn't tell you a single Trump policy they like or a single thing that they're voting for him for. Like I remember talking to a guy and he's like, "Oh yeah, like I don't really vote, I don't really like." And I'm talking about this dude like had political discussions, kind of like what you do every day on a different app. Like he lived in these spaces and he fought hard for Trump. And then I was like, like what policies like? And he's like, dude, like he said, I don't like him because of policies. I like him because of what he represents. And I was like, what does that mean? What do you mean you support him? And he's like, yeah, I don't. He's like, you guys talk policy and you talk about the specific thing. He's like, I don't care about any of that. I decided that I like Trump. Trump's cool, and I'm a big fan. And I want to see him win. I want to see him have success because he's my guy. I picked him. And it's like it's very team sports. And I don't think like when I heard it, I didn't get it, but I don't think he's that I don't like he may have said it out loud, but I don't think he's that unique in it. I think there's a lot of young men who just feel like, oh, Democrats are gay or Democrats don't reach me well.
Yeah.
So I picked these Republican guys and now I'm locked in because it felt cool because we won. And now I'm gonna keep doing it because I want to be on the winning team. And I'm sure there's Democrats like that too. Democrats don't really pay attention to the specifics. They just, get invested in the winning of it too. But this
Well,
team sports crap is like insane.
what did he tell you he represents?
He represents in his head, this is what he said. He said a self-made billionaire.
Self-made billionaire.
I know.
Ah!
Again, he doesn't do research. This is like
Yeah.
it's a projection thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, he's like a guy who just finds success everywhere he goes, and he made all this money, and now he stepped into politics and he's dominant. Like he doesn't care. He'll say what needs to be said. He speaks for the common man. Like I just want to see that guy win.
God, I wish I was a grifter. I wish I didn't have any moral compunctions.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so easy to pull people. Just
It
keep
is.
lying. Just like you have to just be shameless and just repeat a lie again and again, right? Just keep telling people you're successful, and that if they give you money, they'll be successful, and people will give you money even if there's no results. They'll just. I mean, that's
How do
literally
you think Andrew Tate made his brand?
I was
Andrew
thinking of
Tate-
Andrew Tate, right?
Yeah.
And also, was it prophet theology? What's it called? Not called prophet theology. It's you know what I'm talking about.
Probably don't.
Yeah, the one where it says like, well, if you give money to the preacher,
Oh, prosperity gospel.
prosperity gospel,
Mhm.
yeah.
Private
like,
theology. That sounds like a good YouTube channel name. You should pin that. I was like, private theology. I was like,
Yeah, and that'll be my grifting. That'll be my grifting. Well, I tell people, right, like, well, you haven't. The reason why things aren't working out in your life is because you haven't followed these principles. And like, God, like, is angry with you. But if you, I will stand before the Lord and represent you if you send me a check, right? And
you have to pull
blessings
off.
will be
He's
upon
like,
you.
I'm telling you, things will be great, and then you have to drive off in the Lamborghini. Like, and you're like, don't you want one? Because I did this, and this is how I got this Lamborghini. Not from the money you're sending me. I got it from these things I'm telling you. Like, the money just comes out of nowhere.
If I was a grifter,
Mhm.
if I was, people have called me a grifter in the past. Like, oh my God, if I was a grifter, I would have no more compunctions, and I would take these people for everything they're worth. There are so many ways to make money by simply repeating over and over again that you're successful. Trump just kept saying he's successful. Fox News keeps saying they're successful. So people are like, saying, well, he must be successful, but he's not. he's a scam artist up and down. How many times he's scammed? How many bankruptcies he's had? His casinos failing because he decided to open like 3 at once, and they cannibalize each other, and then of course they fail. Like all these like idiotic things. There was the Trump airline, right, where he decided he wanted to put like gold-plated seats, toilet seats, in the Trump airlines. But hey,
airplane.
but that's
they,
really
like,
fucking heavy. And maybe don't do that, right? And then there's Trump steaks that failed miserably. Like all these things that fail all the time. And even the Trump Hotel brand is smoke and mirrors, most of it, right? He operates very little of those. I'm not sure how many, maybe the Trump Tower in New York, maybe that one, but most of that, right? Like, oh, well, if you go to all these fancy cities, right, you'll find a Trump hotel. No, you'll find a Trump branded hotel, right? They're just like buying his name because he's a good marketer. That's what he does. He's good at marketing, right? He's gotten you to believe that he's a genius. So again, mission accomplished, right? But yeah, he managed to associate his brand with success, but he can't actually run these hotels. He can't actually like build these things out. And in fact, during the fucking the thing that made him famous, well, it didn't make him famous, but like blew up his name during the Apprentice, right? Like, remember what the prize with the Apprentice was? The prize was that, well, if you become an apprentice, that you get to work under him, right, and find out his keys to success, right? And he's basically going to take you under his wing. He's going to show you like how, like, you know, people thought like, well, maybe like how to run a hotel, you know, like I'll be part of this like a global brand of like hotels and services, but the people who did win, they reported back what they did, right? And they were just a spokesperson, right? They would go to hotels run by other people, right? That had Trump's name on it, right? And they would cut a ribbon. That's what Trump does. He goes to these hotels and he cuts ribbons. So he did. He actually, I guess in that way he fulfilled, right? He cuts ribbons because he convinces people to license his name. Because that's what they did. And they're like, I'm not actually learning how to run some like global $billion empire, like a hotel service, hotel chain. Because that's not what he does. He just kept lying.
Yeah, and he just leads lives away into being billionaire, multi-billionaire. It's disgusting. Like, I don't think Boondocks could, but like it would feel so parody-ish if you found like oh yeah, a presidential candidate is selling merch, like sneakers, like
Yeah.
like sell, you know, oh, he's going to rent a McDonald's for an hour and go in there with fake clients and like with fake customers and say and like laugh and comment, wow, this is super easy, Kamala. Like, and that doesn't feel like disgusting to like working class. Like Democrats couldn't even get away with it, even if they did it the same way. It would be seen as out of touch as it actually is. But he just gets to do it. He just owns it. He's like, yeah, you know what? I'm a sleazy, slimy, you know, SOB, and like the people, they love him for it. They're like, yeah, Trump lies, but it's like funny when he does it.
And he's our SOB, right? Like he's our sleazy SOB. Yeah, we lies, but like, and mostly like the people he's getting over on, right? Like, yeah, sure, I can spot the lies, right? And not just toss those things away. Yeah, I guess it didn't make sense, right? But the people he's really getting over with, getting over on the deep state, whatever I think that is, right? He's getting over minorities, right? And I have maybe a solid idea about those people, the immigrants, right? He's getting over on the DEI wokeness, which I can't stand, right? He's getting over all the things I hate, right? But not me. Not me, right? Like the scam artists I'm electing wouldn't scam me, right?
Yeah. Or they even say like Republicans love the virtue signal of like, oh yeah, you know what a rapist deserves? A bullet. Like blah 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 blah. And now it's like, hey, you know, Trump was sexual assault. It's different. There's some meaningless categorical differences, specifically in the state of New York, for how we categorize these things. We know that he was, you know, simply found liable. We know that what happened, but that's, you know, sexual assault. Don't use the R word. It's harsh, bro. People have his, like, it's just like so, it's so disgusting. And I think the other thing is like and I actually have to go in a second, but the thing with it is like I said, there's nothing to latch onto with the Republicans. There's nothing to latch onto with the MAGA movement because they don't have values. They don't have things that like, they don't have principles like that. I think that's the biggest thing that Jink is running into, is that like these people don't have any standards. They're Trump followers. Like, so when you think that you're like going to go over to this crowd and you can talk about this position and you may get a cheer about it if you're vague enough about it. And until Trump says otherwise, changes his opinion tomorrow, and those people are going to change with him. None of them are like strongly attached to any of these positions.
So I don't think that's the case. I think that's mostly the case, right? You're talking about the cult. Yes, there's a
Mhm.
cult. There's the 40% built-in crowd. Like he can't fall below like 40% popularity because they're part of the cult, and whatever the cult leader says, they follow. Sure. But there are other people who voted for Trump, right? I think Lactoid has a set of preferences there that he buys into, like, are they're important to him. And I think he'll, but I also think he'll also
I don't
hold
think
his
Lactoid's
nose.
average. I don't think Lactoid's the
Yeah, I
average
hear you,
supporter.
fair. But I think also he'll hold his nose and vote for Trump, and that's what he says he did. He'll hold his nose and vote for Trump, even when Trump doesn't necessarily match those principles, because there's a level of negative partisanship. So there's that. But I think that yes, there are a certain level of principles within these various factions of the Republican Party. I think that's what we're running into right now with this current fight with the H-1B visas, right?
Mhm.
Mainly the factions that actually do, like, hey, I am anti-immigrant, especially the brown ones, can't stand them. And then you're talking about like expanding an H-1B visa program, but hey, I thought the core proposition for Trump is that he's anti-immigrant.
Yeah, we don't
And
even want the
now,
smart ones.
right now, they're not brave enough to directly confront Trump, but they'll confront his proxies, being Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, right? They'll
Mhm.
direct their anger at him, and say, well, Trump is being led astray. But if it continues to be the case, that he is breaking these promises in these very overt ways, I think there will be a revolt. I'm not sure if it'll be significant enough to actually do much, right? But it seems to me that with Drink, wrap this up, is that he's reaching out to those individuals, right? That cohort of individuals who has these strong preferences, and saying, okay, there's some of them that we have in common. At least you're saying that we have these things in common. Maybe come over to our side. I think the way he's doing it is quite poor. His execution is poor. But I think the goal is laudable and not necessarily makes him suspect as like he's a secret conservative. He was scripting
No,
the entire time.
Jenkins been in the game longer than anybody else in the space. I don't think anybody. I mean, obviously you can call it who
Lots
you
of people
want, but
said that.
yeah, I don't think that people reasonably have the right to make. If Jink wanted to grift, like he could have did so a long
Long
time ago.
time ago, yeah.
I believe, yeah, I believe he's a legitimate advocate for the things he says he believes in, and I don't even think I don't think his core values are the things he advocates for have changed. Like I said, I just think that he is. Yeah, his current tactics. I think he's leaning. He's letting his populism, anti-establishment, like side of him. I think he's letting it run a little too rampant. Like it's like just because Trump postures himself as anti-establishment doesn't mean that like this is the crowd. Like does it like I don't know. Like yeah,
He's
I don't
attracted
know.
an
Yeah,
anti-establishment crowd, and he's hoping that, like, when Trump fails, when he obviously, because he knows that Trump is a grifter, that when Trump fails, he can maybe build bridges to these individuals and say, hey, let's try to keep him in check, and like keep him accountable for the promises that he made, right? Like, I don't know, I feel like if he
I
fails
don't
at
even
it,
think he
like,
cares if Trump does anything. Like, I mean, he'll take the wins if they
it's just
come,
that,
but I think he just wants to continue the political expansion of populism going forward. He wants the Democrats to, or like he wants that to be the world now. Like, because
I'm
I think
not
that's the attachment to Bernie. He
I'm
wants
not
like
entirely sure what the harm is in him failing at this. So, right, like, I'm not entirely sure. Like, okay, let's say he humiliates himself, like the Charlie Kirk situation, right? Let's say it's like a straight, utter humiliation. Okay, what damage did he really do, right? Like, I don't understand the vitriol against him. The damage is, like this, at least this portion. I think there's other reasons to be critical of Jank, in this moment. But, like, for this portion, if he fails, well, whatever, right? It's like, not a big deal.
well,
Uh,
because I think there's something to say that you're basically. I think it's something to say when the people you respect in your space are basically kowtowing to the conservatives and saying like and these happen to be the conservatives in power, but just because they're framed as quote unquote anti-establishment doesn't
mm.
mean like I don't think it's healthy for the movement, even if he is like anti-establishment Democrat, to like spend like add more time to his docket of just crapping on the Democrats and holding Republicans to lower
okay.
standard, like
Fair
than we
enough.
whatever. Like I think that's negative. Now again, it's not enough for me to ever like, oh, Jink is a bad actor. He needs to be canceled out of space. No, like I said, I think he's the elder statesman of the thing.
Mm.
But I think that he should. The criticism is fair though. I think the people who want to have those conversations.
I think a
with him-
lot of criticism. I think what you
well,
presented is fair.
some people
Yeah.
may be doing some crazy weird stuff. Like I said, doesn't
Okay,
saying like
fair
the
enough.
canceling, but I'm saying like I think that someone can see that and they can reasonably just say that like, oh, you know what, I should probably talk to Jink about this, or maybe like I don't think that that's the way he's going about this is fair, and I think that there's a conversation to be had. I don't think that it's like, oh well, you know, what's the harm? Just let Jink do what he wants. Obviously, he can do what he wants, but other people can also talk about how he's doing it.
So I'll leave it there. And I'll let you, because I know you gotta go. Maybe your lady is waiting for you, right? She hits you up. It's like,
No, I'm just trying to be more responsible in the
legs
new
spread,
year.
right? Like fill the hole. I'm assuming that's what you just got. But
Jesus Christ.
right? Maybe a
children
picture,
are
right? Like a GIF of like a metal pipe going into like a hole in the ground.
What if my children, like, you know, YouTube's forever. Like, like my children might come back and watch this one day, and they'll be like, "Wow, let's see what type of person my dad was, the type of men he was around." And you're shaming my family for generations.
Yeah, well, then I'll let you know, because he's a fucking degenerate. Sorry, he was a degenerate. I mean, he hung out with degenerates, right? Like, if I'm the measure of the type of person he was with, and I'm a fucking degenerate, so like keep that in mind. But last thing I'll say, right, on a separate note, which we didn't get a chance to discuss, is that I've changed my mind on why Biden lost. I've changed it multiple times, and I've changed it back to Gaza. Actually, Gaza is the reason. We can debate that.
Yeah, that's
Well,
that's
where else would I say? What else would I even bring up to you, right? I don't care about anything else. I care about Gaza. But I think I can make a solid case as to why that is. I made that case actually to a friend in GSU. But I think I have a case. But later, maybe next time, we can do so.
I would be happy to hear it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, audience, for being here. I appreciate if you came through and hung out with us. I'd like to do more of these smaller discussions. I think they're a lot of fun. Hopefully, we can find an audience who appreciates that, right? So, you know, oh, fuck. Yeah, and if you want me to do more of these, like, let me know. Maybe let me know things you want me to talk about. Like, just like, hit me up. You have I'm in the Discord, right? So, exclamation Discord. I think in the description for my YouTube, you should be able to find my socials, right? So, like, hit me up in the Discord if you want me to talk about certain things. Hopefully you guys found some value out of this. I thought this was fun, but you know, I guess that's up to you guys to decide on that. So I'm going to send you guys off. We love women, and so we support women. Here's a woman. I don't know who she is. Never met her before. I'm going to send you off to her. She's just chatting.
She a bad bit.
Yeah. She's a woman. She might review the VOD, so I don't say anything disrespectful.